Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular guys talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me tonight is my co-host, Mike Ostertag. Mike, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm upright and taking nourishment, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that's always handy, right?
Yeah, and in the studio with us tonight from Australia is Paul Cassar. Welcome, Paul.
Good evening
Well,
to you. It's actually afternoon here. No, sorry. It's Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock. So
Wednesday
it's
morning,
really great
11
to be
o'clock. Oh my gosh, I hope our podcast doesn't go on for that long over here.
here.
That's for sure. So Paul, I think you've been on the show maybe once, twice before. Is that?
Yeah, I appeared in the social media one, which was episode 4.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Well, it's good to have you back in the
My pleasure.
studio. And tonight you're going to be sharing, basically giving us like a layout tour tonight of your shelf layout. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. It's a presentation I've done only twice before at a mini convention for the NMRA here in Sydney. And
Okay.
also I presented for Gordy Robinson in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So we did a presentation
cool.
on shelf layouts in the UK, and my layout featured in the UK Roundhouse magazine for
Oh,
NMRA about 2 months ago. So that was a bit of a highlight as well. So it's perfect to present here, and it's about my layout, but it's also about the whole thing around shelf layouts, how you operate. So I take you through the whole thing. I hope I don't bore too many people.
oh, I doubt that highly. I think well, we got 77 folks here in the chat already. So Paul, I know that you're out there in social media and you participate in other podcasts as well. Why don't you, for the viewers here tonight, why don't you give yourself a bit of an introduction to our audience to essentially let them know who you are,
Yep.
what it is that you do in model railroading, and you know what you're doing in the social media realm as well.
Okay, no problem. So I guess a couple of things. Like Mike, I'm a lifetime railroader. I've been on the
Really?
railways prototypically I'm in my 44th year in
Holy
Wow.
man.
railway signalling, signal engineer. So I've done a lot of incidents, investigation. I used to run maintenance operations in Sydney. So I had a team of 100 people managing incidents on day to day. So railways in my blood. My
Oh,
modelling's
wow.
probably about 50 years off and on. I'm the typical, where as a kid I had a layout, small one, and then work came along. I actually worked on the railways model railroad for a couple of years, and then
Oh, cool. That's
and then
awesome.
I want
and
that
then
job.
I want that
it
job
was
too.
good. It was good. And then kids came along, family, and then I got out of it. Then in about 96, and I'll show you in the presentation, N-scale layout, which I had for about 12, 14 years. And then
Yeah.
I had to move. I won't talk too much about the layout just yet. So social media, HO Scale Shelf Modelers is a group that I'm administrator for. We only started that 2 years this month, and we now have 15,500
Oh
members
my
in the
goodness.
group. And it just shows that shelf layouts are really, I think that have really taken over, really become popular. And I think COVID helped that as well. So I do that regularly. That takes up a little bit of time. And the other one, of course, is I'm executive producer of Around the Layout podcast.
Oh, the
So it
dubious
sounds
title of executive producer.
executive producer, but I'll tell you what that actually means is raise the star. And I usually go and pick up after him, clean the floor. I have to
Yep.
get him his drink. He doesn't do anything except, the voice is so important.
Yeah, you
So,
gotta keep the
but
voice
Ray's a great
happy.
guy. And what I usually do is I help him do a bit of background research. We use the group as well as others to look at who are great people to have on around the layout to talk about their layout. And it's really it's about modelers talking about modelers. It's about modeling, and we're very passionate about it. Ray is just a fantastic interviewer, and
Yeah, he is.
it's and we share. It's all about sharing, like this podcast is. I support this one and a number of others because it's about the learnings that I've made and we've made to help the hobby grow. And I'm really passionate about that. And so Ray and I spend a lot of time looking at who's great to have on the show. And it's not about having the A-list of modelers. It's modelers from all facets of modeling. And we really enjoy doing that. See Don Iris is here. Don's been on the show and he's
Yes, he
yeah,
has.
a great modeler and a great mentor for the hobby. Has one of the best multi-shelf layouts I've seen, and I'm actually coming over to the States next year to operate Don's layout and Ray's and a few others. So I'll be there in about May, hopefully, all going well.
Oh,
So
that'd be
yeah,
cool.
so around the layout, if you haven't joined, I really encourage you all to subscribe to aroundthelayout.com. And we've got Lance Meinholm next week, so that's a great interview, and Rob Arsenault the week after, and plus there's around 30 or so that we have that you can download and listen to. It's purely an audio podcast.
Yep.
But I highly recommend it.
And I have to say something. I guess the one where Joe Mammy, this latest one, interviewed
Ray.
That was extremely entertaining. And there's two comments I wanted to make about that. One was Ray tells a fantastic story, but Ray's also going to have to watch his back because Joe did a fantastic job leading the discussion. I thought it was just, I was like, oh, what's this now? There's a new sheriff in town.
I actually thought at one stage that Ray was playing both because they sound very similar.
Yeah. It was almost like, is this a bit of a spoof on me? And am I gonna, and I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, it's,
Is that the one where like his newest one or whatever it is, where it sounds like Ray is interviewing Ray or something?
Yeah, well, it's actually Joe interviewing Ray, but they sound so similar that you really have to concentrate.
Yeah.
I can physically, literally not tell them apart. I thought it was kind of a cool concept, to be honest with you.
I thought it was really creative, and I really enjoyed that show. But Paul, so let's talk just before we carry on here. I do want to just talk about, but not your layout, but the Facebook group as well. So you model, or sorry, not model. Oh my goodness, you manage a Facebook group out there, and what's the name of it again?
It's HO Scale Shelf Modelers.
Okay.
And it's interesting how it started. Myself and Jason Reese. So we were a group in another group, which only had one administrator, and they announced that they were closing the group down because of personal reasons. So
sure,
Jason went across and started this, and then pulled me in on the same day as admin. What we wanted to do was not have one person own the group. I think that's a risk. A lot of people put time and effort into these groups, and to have one individual, so they're going to close it down. So we just commenced. We were happy to help this person. They didn't want any help, so we started this this group, and it grew. But I have a couple of policies around it. And one is, anyone who takes the effort to post, I think deserves at least someone to make a comment. You see a lot of people make posts and there's no comment. So I always comment, provide feedback, and it's not heavily moderated. And what I mean by that is we very rarely have to intervene. Occasionally you get someone come on and, it's a bit of a bully or something like that. So we'll remove them, but it works really well. We have a lot of active people, some excellent modelers, and always helpful and also willing to help those modelers out. And I think it's important that, especially as we get new beginners come into the hobby and they join, ask questions, that we provide them feedback and we help them out. And Paul there, August, is just I changed the who does that remind you of when you look at that photo? Who else does that remind you of? For me, it reminds me of Tom Johnson, that style, and Paul has really done a beautiful layout.
That's a cool little scene.
It is.
Yeah.
It's nice details with the garbage and stuff in between the track in the foreground and the midground there.
Exactly. And it's about adding
car.
detail. If you said to me, what's one thing about a layout, to me, it's having those mini scenes, which I'll go through. But the shelf, the back to the group. Look, it's great, guys. I recommend anyone to come join. And other people will post their groups. I'm fine with that. I'm not the type who says, oh, you can't put yours on or stuff like that. It's all about encouraging people to participate. And I and being in the other part of the world, it's active at night when I'm asleep. I wake up in the morning, I can browse through, and we can end up with 20 or 30 posts a day. Depends how active people want to be.
Yeah, but, here's Paul's. Look at this beautiful post here. There's a lot of content like this in the group all the time.
That's a cool little scene. I like that. I like the way that photo was like put together.
Here's another one. It's just really fantastic. And then I gotta say, Paul, the comments. Here's another one. Oh my goodness, the comments and all that go through, always positive, and the feedback is really. If you get any criticism, it's fairly tame and well received.
Absolutely. Look, feedback, and I always, even my posts, I encourage people to feedback, because in my leadership, in my professional career, we've always been accepting of feedback. All feedback's good. It's you just decide if you want to take it on or not. And it's great. I get a lot of positive comments about my work, but I also encourage people to give me, how can I improve? Because if people don't tell me, how do I know? And there's no such thing as a professional or an expert, and I always worry when people say that they're an expert in any field. And I look to the likes of Boomer, Ray, Don, a lot of people in the group who I ask for advice for, because nobody's an expert on anything.
I agree.
And you learn, you continue to learn. As I said, I've been in my career 44 years, and I still learn. And I don't put my hand up as an expert. I certainly have a lot of experience, but you've always got to be willing to learn, and that's what the group's about. And I encourage people to post, whether it's the first time they've laid track. It's great to see and provide feedback. People, when people lay ballast, and it's always perfect, but Mike will tell you, and I've worked on infrastructure for so long. It's not perfect, and you need to have divots. You need to have grass growing through.
A stone here and there in the web of the rail.
Absolutely, Mike.
Tractor ruts all the way through it. Yep. Like our yard is done in Manitowoc. The yard is was built on cinders. Same way as Green Bay's yard was. So Chicago Northwestern loved doing those yards like that. So in this time of the year when it gets wet, it's like stepping into crunchy pudding. I mean, it's just sucks your shoe right down into the muck. And then the guys in the section go and they try to do their best to keep everything smooth, but they got to get their tractor in and out of there. And it actually comes out being handy because it gives water a lane to actually travel down the hill, and it's, it doesn't pool up as much. But you get, and then don't forget about all the stuff that gets spilled all over the place, whether it's on accident or on purpose,
Well, if you're running grain on your line, then seeds drop everywhere. You got grain right through, and the other part is things like drainage. And if it's a first class line, you're going to have a higher sub formation compared to an industrial line that has no formation, basically. So it's those. For me, I don't even have to look at photos. I've walked it all my life, so I know what it's like. But people do that perfect piece of track, and you say, well, yep, it looks great, but if you really want to be prototypical, perfect doesn't work. So,
Do
you
you
know,
find
and then I look at, go, Mike.
Oops.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you look at Tom Johnson's layout, you know, it's just, that's something that not all of us can reach. You know, we have limitations. I know my limitations. Him and Boomer sit like up there. And it's great to look at those, but don't get I guess disheartened when you're building a layout and doing scenery, because there's all different levels and different capabilities, but you can all get there. It takes practice, but you need to be happy with the level that you do as well.
Yeah, what I was going to say there, Paul, is do you find being in the railroad industry and then going and laying track, do you find yourself getting frustrated with, okay, I know that this is supposed to go like, I'm not talking about the track going like this. I'm talking about, okay, you've got the goat trail for like the next 10 for like 5 miles, and then all of a sudden you come to a road, and after the road it's dead level and there's just a small little drainage ditch, and then you go and fall right up. Finding a way to make those undulations in the track profile topography, I find that to be one of the hardest things in this hobby to actually do.
It's actually harder to get inconsistency than consistency.
Right.
And I saw William Sampson do in a spur that he's hit the top of the rail.
Oh
and
yeah.
cut spots. Fantastic, because that's what it's like, right?
Yeah.
We talk about jointed rail. Well, if you look at any, certainly US, they have what size length rail? 18 foot, something like that.
30 jointed rails usually 39 foot sections.
39.
Or,
I mean, you look at that in a spur, that's just perfect. And what do? We put 3 foot lengths of perfect flex track in the spur, when in reality, you can cut pieces and join it would be more prototypical.
Yeah, Mike, you Mike, you did that bit of an experiment, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, here, hold on a minute before William goes and
zoom out
there.
just a
is that better?
That's a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So Paul, I actually did do that when I first started hand laying my track, and I started doing it. I cut pieces of track at 39 feet, and then what I did is I purposely, the very first piece I cut was only like 2 inches long, so that one was on purpose. That was my starter for the one side, and then the other side was a full 39 foot. So now I'm actually staggering those joints like you have,
exactly.
But it quickly drove me nuts doing 30. That's a lot of rail joints.
And then you've got reliability issues, and you're going to have to solder every track. And so I mean, it's finding that, I guess, medium point. But when I'm laying track, if I look down it and it's got a kink in it, I think, yep, that's prototypical.
That's fine.
You're never going to get perfect tangent track. You might, when you first lay concrete track and you've done a full reconditioning through there in a prototype, but it doesn't take long for it to start to move and settle and that type of stuff. The other thing I will say I enjoy about the group is a lot of people put their weathering up, and I basically don't put anything on the layout unless it's weathered.
Yeah.
Maybe a $400 locomotive I'll leave unweathered for a little while until I get the courage up to weather it. But I think the other challenge on weathering is inconsistency as well. You need more than one method to weather, because otherwise you can tell that the same person's weathered them. So I try and do different types of weathering on the layout, either pan pastels or acrylic washes, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll have a friend weather a car for me, just so that gives that different perspective on the layout. So so many different facets of this hobby. That's why it's so popular and growing. But so the group is I'm really proud of it, and we very rarely have to intervene with any issues. It's a place where I like people to go and feel comfortable to post and make comment.
Yeah.
That's what it's about to me.
No, and it's inspiring too, right? Just to see everyone's work there, and it's
For sure.
It's a cool site. It's cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
And a lot of those things you'd never know by some of the pictures, that some of those scenes are only 4, 5, 6 inches deep. And you'd swear you're looking at like a 2.5 or 3 foot wide like thing. And it's like, okay. I mean, now a lot of it's
depth.
camera. You can get a lot with camera technology and stuff like that and how you frame the scene. But man, the work guys have been doing, it's incredible. I like it.
Yeah, very good.
I think shelf layouts will change. It's those big barrel. You can have a small wall, little switching layout that can provide hours of entertainment.
Yeah, certainly
as well.
Yeah. So, anything else that you wanted to add about yourself, Paul, or your exploits in model railroading before we talk about your layout? Because okay. I'm watching the chat, and I just want to give just a quick note to the section crew out there in the chat tonight. Keep the questions for Paul's layout when he does his presentation. I'll make sure to get them up there so he can answer them, because I see a handful of them are starting to filter in, and that's great. So once he does his presentation, we'll get started on that. I'll bring the questions up about the layout. But Paul, I apologize for cutting you off there.
That's okay.
What were you going to say?
So I guess the only thing is, why a lot of people ask me, why do I model USA, like the layout, and not Australian? And the reason I do that is because I work on the prototype here in New South Wales. So for me to model New South Wales wouldn't give me that break from my working life. And I've always liked US locomotives, and it goes back to when I was probably 5 or 6. I was given a book, and I wish I had it now, but it had a Union Pacific E8 on the front of it.
Ooh.
And then in the spread, it had a Union Pacific train passenger service, and that's just stuck in my head. So when I first went in at N scale, I bought 2 lifelike SD7s Union Pacific.
Yes.
And it went from there. I used to model Union Pacific, and then I modeled the fallen flags of Union Pacific. I modeled Missouri Pacific. But what I have said is, when I do eventually retire, that I will build a second layout, another shelf, which will be New South Wales prototype. It'll be my first fully prototypical. I've got an area in mind where I used to work, and I'll scratch build the building and have a switching layout. And I've already started purchasing some New South Wales, Sydney locomotives and rolling stock for that, but it won't be nowhere near the size of my main layout.
Yeah, and I'm excited to I guess view your presentation, because I've always had a soft spot for the MKT and the Mopac, and I just I've never had the courage to model either. So I'm
taking modeling license, right? I call myself a proto freelancer, really. I try and build the layout as prototypical, but I like to run stuff that suits me. The other thing you will notice is that I have no signaling except a couple of level crossings on my layout. I have no motorized points, because I don't want to be working on that when I when I used to do it in a prototype.
Yeah,
and I want my layout to be reliable. I don't want points failures and signaling failures and all that. That is my life.
God forbid you get called out in the middle of the night because something like that on your layout. You got to go downstairs. And, I got to go and solder a joint because
this relay.
Absolutely.
Failed.
Yeah.
Jeff just asked a question: what gauge is New South Wales? It's standard gauge, 4 foot 8.5 in New South Wales. Most of Australia now is standard gauge, although some states are narrow and some states are broad gauge. So, but we do have a national network of standard gauge, pretty much.
Nice. I didn't know that. I was
Yeah,
always mystery for me.
We
What
run
was going
double
on.
stacks across the country, and we run the longest trains in the world in the mines. We also now have Roy Hill, which is one of the private mines up in the in Western Australia. It's fully automated, driverless. You won't like that, Mike. But fully automated. Yeah, no driver. They do use a driver for a bank engine, only to be on the back of it to ensure that the process is completed automatically. But yeah, pretty amazing stuff.
So the broad gauge late night
It's
model railroad.
I think broad gauge is 5 foot 3 inches, and narrow gauge is 3 foot something. Yeah.
Is that the same? Is 5'3"? Is that the same that they use over in Chile and stuff like that? Because they're or in Russia, isn't it the Soviet Union? They use that. I know they're broad gauge also, or wide gauge.
Yeah, so, for sure. Yeah, Rio Tinto is the driverless one in Roy Hill, up in Western Australia.
Unbelievable.
No thanks.
That's awesome. So that's a heck of an intro, Paul. A lot of good questions coming into the chat. Speaking of the chat, we have 118 people out there tonight.
Oh my God.
It's a big showing for Paul. A lot of good comments coming in. So section crew, let's hear from you. Why don't you say, hey, I'll do the usual bit here where I'll try and publicly read all the names, and we'll go from there. But so let us know how you're doing tonight, where you're at, where you're coming from. Austin Clunker, Randy Timmerman is here. Welcome. Let's see here. Mike H.O. Trains is here. Why are you naked for? Is here this evening. Yeah, I couldn't make it up if I tried. Welcome, Wigwag, Hey There section podcast, second section podcast crew. Drew Glade, hello from northern Wisconsin. Chris Bell is here tonight. Let's see here. Dave BNSF N-Scale is here. Connor Rolofson is here. Lynn McCurdy here this evening. Robert Thomas, Aussie engineer in the house. Sue the Milwaukee Road is here. AJ Palmer, hello from Brisbane, Australia. Don Iris, Sebastian, Florida. Welcome, Don. William Kennedy, Bill Kennedy from Indy, enjoying. John Rose is here tonight. Containerman 68, hello in the truck, Tampa, Florida. Chris Bells from Iowa. Here we got Tim Moran, Akron, Ohio, sends his greetings. Derek Alexander's here tonight. QNER Railroad from Toronto is here. Like that channel. Let's see. J3730 from Jay Hastings from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jim Donahue from Marshall, Michigan, modeling the BKRR. Late Night Model Railroad is here tonight. Upstate New York. Welcome, Late Night Model Railroad. John Garvin's here. The Osmerica Model Railroading. Hardy is here tonight. Welcome, Jeff Schultz, Salem, Wish, Oregon. Nathan Crabb is here just to add more pressure to Andy. Jeff Anthony is here from the coast of Maine. Mick Shea is here. Thomas Chris is here. Did Andy read all 118? Almost. Steve 87th PSAP is here. Bill Kenkel. Jarrell Eames is here this evening. Welcome. Peter Tillman. Randy's Rock and Roll Railroad from Tuttle, Oklahoma. Darren James. White Rock, BC. Heath is here tonight? Question mark. Tom O'Connell, Central Wisconsin. Grandpa Rails. And Bob Tusink is here as well. Beerline Modeler, and the list goes on and on and on. Central Minnesota and Western. Welcome everyone to the Second Section podcast. So we got a great show packed in tonight. We're going to do an awesome short line of the show that's near and dear to a lot of people in the section crew and to a couple of the hosts here. And then after the short line of the show, Paul is going to give us a wonderful tour about shelf layouts and his layout, the Riverbelt line. Can't wait to see that. So welcome everybody. Mike.
Muskoka Steve, he's from Ontario. What part of Ontario are you at? I'm going up there in April 20th. So I'll be up in Sudbury. So if you're anywhere around the Sudbury area, drop me a line and hey, maybe we can get together and do lunch or something.
There you go.
But
yeah, if you're not here, raise your hand. Good one.
I'm not here.
So we're about half hour in. Good start so far. What we'll do is we'll take our first commercial break here, kick it over to the Greasy Meat Hands band as they introduce our next segment. It is time for the short line of the show. Mike, I'm going to put you on center stage.
All right.
Drink of water here. And where are we in the United States on the big map?
We're in the state of Michigan.
Okay, Michigan.
And I made an executive decision. I am ignoring the lower portion of that state altogether.
Okay. You're ignoring the lower portion, so we're looking at Wisconsin's comb over, the UP.
Yeah, the Wisconsin's comb over, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is where we're looking. Now, I was going to do the Escanaba and Lake Superior, and that is a railroad that is very near and dear to your heart and my heart, and a lot of people's heart around. But the more I started looking at it, the more I'm like, really, I mean, it's not really that exciting.
Okay.
It has a very interesting history. It has all that, but it's just, I kind of felt I needed something more. Okay. So I thought I'd go maybe, what would it be? Under 60, 70 miles, if even that far, north of Channing, Michigan, up to Marquette.
Ooh, up north.
Way up north. Up north, as they say. And I am going to do the best I can to screw this up completely.
Well, while we're at it, Wigwag Workshop threw out a super chat. His favorite part of the show. Thank you. Hey there, Wigwag. Thank you, pal. Love the super chats.
All right, here we go.
Dun, 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 dun.
Can you see that?
And in full screen.
You can see that?
Yeah.
The Lake Superior and Ishpeming.
LS&I.
We are going to mining country, baby. And I tell you what, the LS&I is one of those railroads that when you go up and visit it, even to this day, if you don't fall in love with the area, the scenery up there is just breathtaking.
It is.
It is absolutely beautiful. I don't like to bring a whole lot of religion into things, but God was paying very close attention to what he was doing when he made that part of the UP. It is just gorgeous. I highly recommend people come up here. Now, one of the things I've got to figure out how I'm going to do this. Okay, so there's that.
We're back.
We're back. You're back. I got to figure out how to do this a little bit more seamless.
Paul, as an executive producer, if you have any notes for our team at all to improve production value here on the second section, by all means, let her rip.
No problem.
So here's a map of what the LS&I is today.
Okay, that's what it is today.
Pretty much. You have in Marquette, you have the ore dock, which, by the way, is the last gravity-fed ore dock on the Great Lakes.
Really?
Yes. Everything else is fed by conveyor or etc.
So let's for the folks who don't know, what are we talking about here? What does that mean? A gravity fed ore dock?
Well, I can actually show you
We're
what a
gonna show
gravity.
me.
Yep, I'm gonna. This is where production. This one is gonna take some production. Let's see. How can I say it? Strategery.
Yeah, you're gonna need some strategery. So the line goes from, looks like the dock, which is gonna be in Marquette, Michigan. Oh, this
Okay.
is a beaut. Okay.
Okay, this is a Liam Hoffman photo. Okay. Now, a lot of these photos that I'm going to be showing with the
Yes.
handful that have not come from the net and stuff like that have
Yep.
come from kids who are under the, and I do say kids because I'm 53 years old.
Sure.
These guys are the same age as my sons, and they are taking photography like this.
Yes.
It is ridiculous. Obviously, this was done with a drone, but still, the way these guys are able to frame stuff today is just amazing. So this is from Liam Hoffman. He gave this one to me. Now, gravity feed, this is what they're calling charging. When they shove the loads up, it's called charging the dock. So they line up the cars and they basically just empty them down into the chutes. And then once the chutes get to a certain point and are ready, these chutes are like lowered, and then a door towards the base is opened, and via gravity, the ore is loaded into the boat. It is that simple. And
That's simple.
What they can do that is really neat though is, and this, I have a friend of mine who is a locomotive engineer on the LS&I, and he has been, what they do is if a customer for a steel mill has a certain type of steel that they need, or a certain like grade of ore that they need, or mixture, they can actually do that to some degree right on the dock itself by mixing different grades of ore in the bins when they charge those chutes, so that ore grade goes into the boat and is sucked out of the boat at, like, say, goes Cleveland. And when it gets to Cleveland, it comes out of the boat and it can go right to the to make the steel making process, and it's all set and ready to go right straight from the boat. So it's really interesting how they can do stuff up there.
That's amazing.
But, this winter time. Oh, I'm sorry.
I derailed you, Mike.
Go ahead.
Did you want to bring the map back up and describe it? I know we got off on a tangent, and I apologize to the section crew for that.
We're good. Here we go. Da, da, da. Okay. Hey, I can do the clicky click part.
You're getting the clicky clicks down.
I got the clicky clicks down.
Paul must be coaching you in the background.
So
whiff.
Yeah. So where this branch is here, Marquette is where their main yard is. That's called Eagle Mills.
Yep.
And then, believe it or not, from Eagle Mills yard down to the docks, they go over a trestle right it's not in the middle of town. It's maybe
it's in the middle of town.
It's in the middle of town. It's the Dead River Trestle. And this trestle is 565 feet long. And I've got pictures of it. It's 565 feet long and 104 feet high. It is beautiful.
104 feet high.
104 feet high. Yeah, that's up there. So from Eagle Mills, this is basically one job. They have a yard. They call it the West Yard down by the dock. It's where they stage the loads and to go up onto the dock, and then they also stage the empties to go back up to the yard. So that's one job. In the yard, there's not a lot of shuffling around that goes on. There is manifest that comes in. It's mainly, I believe it's mainly clay, like a bentonite type of clay for making pellets.
Yeah.
and then I believe they also get limestone. And those are the things that they use, and they take those right down into the mines themselves to where the pelletizers are, and that way that's part of helping make the pelletizing process of the ore.
Yep.
And but there's a location like Eagle Mills is right here. Forestville is basically where that Dead River Trestle is, or right near there. But then once you leave Eagle Mills and you're heading, I believe this is the line right here on the bottom that goes towards the Empire Mine. And the Empire Mine is no longer being used at this time. However, there's rumors that it may be opening back up because there's processes and technology that they've come out with that the overburden, which is the rock that they get the ore from, they can actually, they're starting to figure out ways to extract more ore from this overburden. So there's, for about the last 5-10 years, there's been rumors that they're going to start digging into that stuff.
Huge. It's a mountain.
I tell you what, when you see some of these photos of especially a couple that I took and some of these guys took of like near Empire Junction, and that's where the Canadian National comes in. And what the heck is the name of the town right there, or the name of the station? The little CN yard there. It starts with a B. Anyway, the CN comes in and will go into Eagle Mills and deliver, or they used to go down into the Empire and come back.
Yep.
But now they have only jobs that head out towards the Tilden mine, which is on this other line.
Actually, no, Mike, I think.
Or if I got that backwards.
You got that. So the Tilden line.
The Tilden's down here, right?
Yeah, Tilden's down on the corner.
Tilden's down here.
Yep.
The Empire's down here.
No, it's on the same line. So Empire is right there.
Oh, right here.
Yep.
Right here. And then the Tilden goes down here.
Tilden.
That's the Tilden.
And I think it's called Partridge Yard.
Partridge Junction.
Yeah, Partridge.
Yep, Partridge Junction. Yep.
Right.
It's been a long time since I've been up there. I'm going back up there this summer. I know that for a fact. It's just too nice up there.
Yeah.
But then this other line over towards Nagani and Ishpeming, Champion, this is now part of the mineral range, if I remember right.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's there just as a connector for the mineral range.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But this used to be a really active little part. In Ishpeming, there was a yard. Believe it or not, this was all CTC at one time. And now it's not. And now I believe it's all yard limits. With, I believe, a 20 or a 520, or I believe there's like a 25 mile an hour or 20 mile an hour speed limit on it, if I remember right. But I'm trying to do most of this from my memory. So
we're getting fact checked by the chat.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
But the line to Nagani, the Mather A mine was over there, and the Mather B, and I believe, and I get these two screwed up, the portion of the Mather B is part of the high school at Nagani, and another portion somebody else owns, and I've actually gone down into it where the it's like some kind of a machinist thing, and the guy's got all sorts of, I believe a rail salvager had it at one point. And a friend of mine, Dave Baucus, and I, we drove down in there one day, and we saw somebody and said, "Hey, can we just run around?" He said, "Yeah, just don't get killed." And we went down deep into it. We had flashlights. The guy's got all sorts of really cool antique stuff down inside. And there was actually inside the floor of the mine buildings themselves, there were little turntables and small little pieces of rail and stuff like that.
For the mine cars, right?
For the mine cars, yeah. And then the elevator to go down into the shaft was capped off, so you could only go down. You couldn't get down. You couldn't see that, it was so dark you couldn't see it. But that shaft, from what I understand, went down to a ridiculous number of feet. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking like
Probably
a mile
hundreds.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Split Rock's egging us on here. Mike, let's see some pictures of this beautiful railroad.
well, all right, fine. Push. Always.
The history lesson's nice, but I think
You
We
can't
wanna
please
see
everybody
pictures.
all the time, Mark.
Oh, that's okay. I love everybody. So, like I said, this is the ore dock at
Beautiful.
on Lake Superior. Off to the left is Presque Isle. And then off to the ship's right, shouldn't say ship, it's a boat, not a ship, it's a boat, because it's not an ocean going vessel, it is a Great Lakes vessel, so therefore it is a boat, not a ship. To the right of this is a unloader for the power plant, which is directly behind us. And they would bring boats in like this filled with coal and unload into this chute, go down under the highway. And it's incredible. The whole area is really neat.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure. These are all from Liam Hoffman. This is just gorgeous. There you can see the distance signal.
It's a beaut.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
In the background here, if I remember correctly, I believe those are some of the tailings piles back there. That just goes to show you how high these things are. This is near I want to say this is close to Forestville, maybe a little north of it on the way to the dock, but this is on the way down the hill from Eagle Mills heading towards the dock, towards West Yard.
Yeah. So what do you, let's describe what we see on the screen here. These aren't your typical AC or 4400 ACs, or what are we looking at here?
These are C30-7s.
C30-7. So there, it looks like ex-Burlington Northern units.
Yes, that would be what it is. And what's really interesting is the LS&I, and we'll get some pictures of some of the older paint schemes here in a little bit. But when LS&I got the former, I believe they were U30Cs or U33Cs from the Burlington Northern, and then a handful of these C30-7s, when they got those, they adopted the Burlington Northern's paint scheme as their own. The only thing they did is, I believe they made a slight change to the way the stripes were on the nose. I think there's one less. I think there might be one less, but regardless, they adopted this as their own paint scheme to save money. That way they didn't have to repaint anything. They just went on and just left it. Which, really makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
And as any good U-boat will do, they do like to smoke.
Wow.
This is now if you look real close, this is a manifest train. It's
a short one too.
It's a short little 3-car train. That's all it is. But if I had to venture a guess, I'd say they're heading back towards Eagle Mills from down from the West Yard. Now this shot. I'm sorry, Liam. I love you, buddy, but nobody should be allowed to take this good of photography.
This is beautiful. I mean,
isn't that ridiculous?
Beautiful shot.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Right here, that's that coal unloader I was telling you guys about.
Yeah.
So, but here you have, I believe it's a 1,000-footer on one side and a, say, 850 on the other side, something along those lines. Those are some big boats. And then as you can see the way these are all empties right here. They were charging the pocket is what they called. But they have these little, I'm going to try to zoom in on this.
Wow.
They've got these little almost like little roads. And what they do is they take these vehicles and go alongside the cars, and they use these little vehicles to open up the gates on the cars to unload them. So it's really, really kind of a slick little operation.
Who took this picture?
This is Liam Hoffman. Yeah, this is from his drone.
If you're watching tonight, Liam, thank you for sharing that with us. This is unbelievable. Really, really adding to the content here tonight. Thank you.
This is, how do you not just fall in love with something like this? It's really difficult to just, everybody can see your typical trains we see, but this is stuff that's out of the way that you really got to go hunting for. And once you find it, you never want to not go there ever again. It's you just have to.
That's artwork.
It is.
Yeah.
This photo right here, you could swear you're in the Colorado Rockies.
Right?
You swear it.
The UP is a totally different planet.
It is absolutely. I mean, and yes, we did make a little, we poke some fun, and we have jest about the UP from being in Wisconsin. We called it Wisconsin's comb over, and there's always, Wisconsin 2.0, whatever you want to call it. It is absolutely gorgeous country up there.
Oh, this is a neat shot too.
That is really, really cool.
Summertime.
Yep, summertime. I want to say this is
so the 3 weeks of summer that they do have up there, they're bringing loads out.
Yeah, they're bringing loads down. Are they taking?
You can see the Cocoa Puffs there in the back.
That's not Empire. Yeah, that's Empire Junction. No, that's not Empire Junction.
I don't know. It all looks the same up there. If you don't have a. This is cool shot with the overburden piles in the back.
This, ladies and gentlemen, should tell you some scope of scale that you're dealing with up there.
Yeah.
This right here is all overburden. This is all, and the further down, obviously, you're looking at ore remnants from the early 1900s towards the bottom, all the way to ore remnants from the almost nearly today, like the last 10 years is up in here. And there is ore galore inside of these piles like this. And it makes you, this is like Andy said, this, when you see this stuff, it really, you really kind of feel tiny. You feel really small. I mean, look at, everybody knows how big these engines are. Look at how small that looks.
So you talk, like Boomer was on here talking about scale with trees, right?
Right.
And so imagine these overburden piles are just man-made mountains, and they just tower. So, like, for example, if you were to make this, like a layout, right? And it's a great choice for a layout. Like another example of ore operations is split rock, and he'll tell you that, basically making that conveyor belt's fantastic for the scenery, right? The operations, the eclectic locomotive power that you get to use, right? But look at that overburden pile. That's got to be almost 1,000 feet tall.
And the thing is, too, is looking at this photo, Boomer did a whole thing on where you use that extruded foam, and you're using the extruded foam and painting the side of that. If you look at this, those are not rounded edges on it. There's a lot of squared off edges here, and a lot of stuff that it's not smooth. It's not just like you would see in typical pile.
Right.
So you could do extruded foam in layers and change things of that nature and do it like that, and just stack and stack and stack until you got to a point where you were satisfied with it. This is kind of a neat artsy fartsy kind of picture. But one thing I wanted to point out with this is,
that's pretty.
Isn't that pretty? The one thing I wanted to point out with this is the fact that these ore cars look vastly different to the ones you see in Minnesota. And for those of you that don't know, and that there are differences, and they are major differences between the Michigan style of ore car and the Minnesota style of ore car. And the Michigan style, if I remember correctly, are slightly smaller, a little bit more compact. And the reason that is so that they could fit over the top of the charging pockets.
Over the docks.
Docks. Whereas the docks in Minnesota are slightly bigger. The pockets are a little bigger so that they can have a little bigger car. But it's not much bigger. But they are, if you put a Minnesota
like
car I was going to say it's like a foot or two. But if you put a Michigan car and a Minnesota car next to each other, you'd be able to tell the difference in them right away. But this is just another gorgeous picture. Here's another one too. I mean, this is the scenery is just amazing. Now, Andy, on your layout, you were doing a little swampy type of thing.
Yeah, this is exactly the scene that's right behind me, basically.
Yeah,
it's where just the swamp or the cut, is right behind, the right up to the right of way.
Yeah, it's really, really neat.
Yeah, it's cool. This is a cool shot. Here's another. Oh, it's another butte.
Yeah.
So Nate, just for all intents and purposes, a lot of people say or Jenny or Jimmy, or wagon.
I always call them Jimmys.
Jenny.
I always called Jimmy, Jenny.
If you're working with Nathan Crabb, it's or wagon.
Yeah, well, I promised Nathan this last weekend that I would be nice to him. So whatever. I've known Nathan since the day he was born. So yeah. I mean, but here's another one. Look at the size of that overburden pile.
Yeah, it's basically.
This is Empire Junction. That I know for a fact. This is Empire Junction. This is a photo I took.
This is a nice picture. You get to see the locomotive from the side here.
Yeah, thank you. This is really kind of a neat picture. This is back when they had a lot more of the green units were running around. Kind of neat that they blanked out the windows but kept them in. They just kind of painted over them. But now I took this one also. Here's a photo that is really interesting to me because this is where they're charging the pockets. But what's happening here is that they're fresh pockets. So all the residual dust is actually coming back up through some of the chutes and through some of these vents that they've got on the dock.
Yeah.
And that dust is also from like the cars being just unloaded. And so there's all sorts of residual in the air down there.
And if you understand how they make I guess in this case it's hematite, not taconite, right? The little
is it
balls.
Taconite? Is it hematite up there?
It's hematite and not it's a different ore in taconite's in Minnesota, and then hematite's
in Michigan,
and magnetite. They have that vein of iron ore there, but this will be a whole nother show. We'll talk about red dirt.
Yeah.
Just red dirt.
Red dirt. Michigan blueberries, if you want to know the actual technical term.
We'll just talk about red dirt, and I have some of these pellets, and it's amazing how dusty they are.
Mm-hmm.
And because they crush the rock into such a fine powder that it's really, really nasty stuff.
Yeah. This one's a little out of focus, but I still thought it was a manifest train. This is coming. Man, what the heck is the name of the cut right there? But it's coming towards Empire Junction, towards one leg of the Y.
Yep,
that's right there. I just thought this was kind of a neat picture. So
see the BN here, the Burlington Northern Heritage there.
Yep, I just kind of snapped that one because I thought it was kind of neat. This one, he's actually moving, and he's got no headlights. But
Oh, really?
this is Empire Junction, and this location right here is a location that my friend Dave Baucus told me about. This is smack in between all the legs of the Y. And at Empire, this is Empire Junction. Is it Bagley Junction? No, that's not it. No, is that it? Anyway, up to the right here, this location right here where the road in the intersection is, that's called Deer Hair.
Huh.
Don't ask me why. If anybody that lives up there knows the reasoning behind why, or knows exactly why this is called Deer Hair, it'd be kind of cool to find that out. But you're off to the right here. This track to the right is going to head up towards Eagle Mills, and you can just see through the trees over here. The track to the left that goes over to towards the Canadian National / WC's trackage.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is another one, just right in that same kind of
bentonite clay up.
Yep, bringing the clay cars down. This is a picture I took through that rock cut.
Yeah, that's a cool scene. You see a lot of pictures in that rock cut coming around the Y.
Yeah, this is the line, if I remember right. This track right down here is the line that goes. Is that the line that goes towards Ishpeming? Might be. I can't remember. This track here goes someplace. It was still
They
active.
all do.
They all do, right?
Yep.
Hey, here's a Nathan Crab photo.
It's cool with the signal or
Isn't
with
that
the
neat?
wires, the posts there too.
Isn't that neat? Here's another Nathan Crab photo. Again, here.
The size of that boat.
Isn't that something? It's the same boat as if you look, this is a daytime shot of the nighttime shot that Liam had. This is just a daytime shot. Here's another one from Nathan.
So this is another interesting little side snippet of the LS&I. So the modern LS&I, they have their normal, like we talked about their ore cars,
Right?
But they also have these Frankenstein ore cars that
like this one right here.
What do they call them? The Husky.
The Huskies, yeah,
the Husky ore cars that I don't know if they're still in service or if they use them for like scale testing or what, but every now and then on a train you'll see these oddball ore jennies or ore wagons that just come out, and they're just it's interesting.
The Green Bay and Western had like 20 of them that they used for ballast that they got from the LS&I. But then the rest of them, that's the only railroad that I know of that has gotten any of these. I don't know if the ELS, the Escanaba and Lake Superior, got any or not. But for the most part, I think they just use them now for like ballast cars.
I couldn't tell you.
Or like you said, for scale test cars or whatever. But hey, Paul, how about this for your ballast? How about this for ballast? You have nothing but this goes to show you. And this is another interesting operation, and I don't know if they do this in Australia, but what they will do here is they've got because of the way the pellets are, they're magnetic for they have a magnetic property to them. They'll actually go with a magnet truck and suck all this stuff up in the middle of the track.
Falls out of
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they'll actually suck this all up and then put it in the boat and ship it off to make steel.
If you look at that if you look at that ballast, the condition's pretty poor. It's full of fines. That track's due for reconditioning.
Oh, it's you know what? It's perfectly fine because you know what, Paul? In the wintertime, this place gets frozen solid and it won't go anywhere. I mean the track
that's
up
a perfect shot of track, isn't it? Like if you look at that and you look at, it's not straight. It's well worn.
Like even
and
like this joint,
lengths.
this joint right here. That's not a square. That's not a round joint. You have but the way they get around that is it's on the low side, right? The high side looks a little better.
Yeah.
except for this one right here. But
I mean that's taken with telephoto camera
yeah,
lens, so it makes it look worse than it is really. But that's a good sample of track to model.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah. This is the same area of the rock cut that I had taken my photos at.
Nice roof shots of the
Oh
locomotives
yeah,
there too.
yeah. Nathan's another one of those guys, a photographer that's just
Another cool junction.
yeah. There's a whole group, the whole group of guys. Like I said, they're all 20 something. This is a Owen Lemons photo.
He's another.
Yeah,
Luke Lemon's.
Luke Lemon's son.
son.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good one too.
And then so now we're getting closer to.
So this is a bunch of the stuff that's modern day, right? So we didn't really explore much of the history of the LS&I, but the LS&I has been around for a long time.
Yeah, it began as part of in 1893 as part of Cleveland Cliffs Iron Company.
Yeah,
and I have a whole bunch of I have some notes. So
Mike did notes.
So the iron range that it works in is called the Marquette range.
Yep.
You have the Marquette, the Menominee, the Gogebic, and what's the fourth one? Yeah, I know the Gogebic. There's a lot of people that love the Gogebic, but I don't know, man. But the Marquette and the Menominee are kind of the two big ones, if I remember right.
Yep.
And then I thought there was a fourth one up there.
I'm not sure about that.
Up by Ashland, that's the Gogebic, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's just stick with the three. So they are in the Marquette range. The railroad at one point had a line that came out of Marquette and went to the east over towards Munising. And then they also had another line that kind of went up north, up towards Big Bay, Michigan. And in the 1960s, that line was sold. And I'm not sure who ran it or if anybody, if it's even in operation anymore up towards Big Bay. But then the Munising line, they stopped running on that in the 1980s. But the interesting thing about that is they served a paper mill over there.
That's right. It wasn't iron ore.
It wasn't iron ore. They had I think one or two RS3s that there were kind of orphaned over there. And they that was the LS&I's power. And at one point, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but at one point, the Munising branch was severed from the rest of the railroad and was served by the Sioux line from the south. If I remember correctly, would that have been late? I
don't know the answer to that.
I can't remember, but I want to say, but anyway, there are two separate. You could actually model the LS&I in Munising doing paper mill operations.
Yes, you could,
and not have any ore stuff at all.
Trout Lake.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Bob with the save there.
Yep. And so the railroad itself has got an incredible history, that is a lot of fun to really do a lot of research on. And it had at one point a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's got a grade from Marquette down to the mines. The steepest grade on the railroad is 1.63%. That's not bad, eh, Paul? That's
getting there when you've got heavy loads like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Engineer be working their time.
I think it might be empties down that and loads coming back up. Luckily. But I mean, unless that's the line unless it's at 1.63, I happen to have, because I got issued some of these when I worked on the WSC. I actually have LS&I timetables.
Whoa, look at that.
Yeah, I actually have some LS&I timetables, but they're very much old and out of date. But uh, these things, if you can get a hold of old timetables for doing your modeling, they really can help with what trying to figure things out as to loads down, empties up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brock. That's what I kind of thought. I thought it was the going down towards the docks. But so you mentioned some of the older paint schemes,
Yes.
the older locomotives. Okay, let's take a look at that here quick.
Real quick.
Okay? Real quick. Let's see. How about let's not do that one. Jeez Louise, come on. Let's see. RS3s, RS1s, RSD12s.
Yeah, let's look at them and the Gators, right?
Oh yeah, the Gators.
Yeah, so
Look at that.
it's not showing up.
Oh, it's not showing up. Well, doggone it. How about
There
that?
we go.
So, isn't that now? This is not a paint scheme for the faint of heart. This is you can buy decals for this. I believe Microscale
They do makes them.
Makes them. And it is a really, really neat paint scheme. I'm kind of a sucker for the green, to be honest with you. I kind of like the green scheme. There
That's a
is
6-axle Elco.
Yeah. Now this is a what their paint scheme used to look like.
Oh,
It was
gross.
well, this is old, but I mean it's a red and like a creamy yellow color. And I've actually painted some of these for Dave Baucus like this, and
I just come up. That's gross.
yeah, but it. Let me see if I can find a better one.
That's a good. I mean, it's a what is that?
It's an RSD12.
An RSD12. So
Yep.
can you imagine those old girls pulling 100-car ore trains out of the mine?
Oh, I mean, well, that's
imagine the smoke that must have been coming out of them as they came out. It's just it had to be something crazy.
They were not exactly. At one time, they decided to go in this ore brown color dip scheme.
Yep.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry, but that's
those are the color of those RS3s that were orphaned out in Munising.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And then we got some really neat locomotives. They had U23Bs or Cs. I'm sorry, U23Cs, and that's an engine that you don't see very much in the modeling world. I believe somebody's coming out with them, though, aren't they? Or is that
didn't Atlas just come out with them?
Yeah. So if you wanted to do the U23s, here you go. I mean, they're a big engine.
Yes, they are.
I mean, it's really kind of sharp. That paint scheme is just a sharp paint scheme. I like that. It's too bad that they got rid of like all of that kind of stuff. They also had here, let's get to the alligators.
Yeah,
the gators. Let's see. That's kind of a crappy photo. I mean, the photo itself is really cool. It's just not a good picture of the engine. Let's see. Here we go. Here's what they looked like when they first got on property.
So they're old Santa Fe units.
They're old Santa Fe units. Yep. How do you like the old wood boxcar up here?
It's on the dock, isn't it?
It's somewhere. It's I don't know. Sure. But look at that. Isn't that cool? And look at the old crane in the background.
Yeah.
That's
and then
pretty.
more importantly, that looks like a station wagon in the foreground there.
It does.
An old Woody wagon.
Yeah. All the photos 1975, so that would
It
stand
looks
to
like a
reason.
Ford LTD Country Squire if I ever seen one.
The good old Country Squire. They did do a dip scheme with these also.
It was red, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the same. It was the same colors. It was the here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, that's just. I'm sorry, but it's part of the history. But for me, that's a little off-putting. It's just not a fan of this paint scheme. It just, I understand why they did it. The reason behind it is because the engines looked less dirty.
Yeah, it made them look clean, right?
They made them look cleaner because that's the same color as the ore dust that they were dealing with. So, however, at one point in time, and this one, well, there is one left in preserved in at IRM. So the Illinois Railway Museum has got one. And let's see, here's the picture I was looking for.
That's the one. That's
the
with
one.
the nice red paint scheme.
Yep.
The LS&I. That's a beaut.
And these ended up on the Green Bay and Western at one point. And then they also, but they never ran on the Green Bay and Western. They were too heavy. The entire line, the frame on these is lined with concrete, from what I understand. So these
for the tractive effort.
For tractive effort, yep.
Wow.
But they did see service on the Fox River Valley Railroad on the FRVR. So they did run in and out of Green Bay south towards Milwaukee. They weren't very well liked, and they didn't like to play well with the EMDs, I guess. So, but they did see some service in on regular freight manifest service on the FRVR after they came down here, and they were still in this, paint scheme.
Yep, I remember those.
And then let's see. Now they got here's some of the U30 C30-7s. We saw some pictures of that.
We saw those.
Yep. And then we saw some of the U30Cs. The U20. Oh, go ahead.
It's interesting how they switched out their power, right? So when they went with diesel, it was all Elco, right?
Right.
For maintenance purposes. And then they went and did and then they transitioned to all GE locomotives. They got rid of all their Alcos, and now they all have GEs, right?
Yeah, but the GEs are very similar in nature to the Alcos. Yeah. And so that it was kind of almost like a bit of a seamless transition. But this is here's a U25C. I mean, they dabbled in the most eclectic units that GE offered at the time. I mean, you didn't see a lot of these out and about on small railroads like this, but U25s, they only had two of them. They had the 2501 and the, I believe, 2500. Is that the other one? Yes.
Yep.
And that one ended up looking in the dip scheme. Kind of interesting take with it, though, with the yellow handrails on this one. It's, kind of neat.
It'd be a nightmare to paint.
Right. But, I mean, one of the things I wanted to offer up also, and I haven't done this. Oh, and Flickr presence. They're all over Flickr. Big time Flickr presence. YouTube presence. They've got a big time YouTube presence.
Yep.
They've got Facebook groups.
Yep.
that will like pretty much rival almost any other railroad's Facebook group. But one thing that's interesting is there's a lot of books about this railroad out there. There's several. Morning Sun has a part of their In Color series. They have 2 volumes called the Lake Superior Nishpeming In Color. And then I gotta find myself here. Where am I? There we go.
You're in Green
There
Bay,
we are.
Mike.
Yeah, I am in Green Bay. But then, if you happen upon these two books, and they're both by Patrick Dorn, and one of them is called "The Great Lakes Ore Docks and Ore Cars." This is a really, really. I'm sure Thomas Gazier probably has a copy of this book because this is kind of like the Red Dirt Bible almost. It really does cover.
Don't go giving away all the secrets to the Red Dirt Mafia now.
But it does cover all of the railroads that serve the mining areas.
It's amazing how many short lines, you know, the ones that you've shown already.
Yeah,
Just amazing. Perfect for modeling. This one you've shown now is probably more around like a main line, isn't it? Like it's, even though it's a short line, it's mainline operations.
It's very much, yeah, but it's two different railroads almost in one, because you have the Eagle Mills is like the dead center. Well, not really, but I mean, it's the center of where all the shops and everything is. And then you have the guys that go down into the mine and come back. And then the guys that go down to the dock and come back.
Right.
And then you have the guys that work at the dock. So that's a different.
And if I'm not mistaken, I still think they run this. Is it the 7-weigher job?
Yeah, the 7-weigher.
The 7-weigher, and that's like I weigh, 200 pounds, right? The 7-weigher job is an interchange job, isn't it, with the CN, the Canadian National?
Yeah.
And so they'll do interchange work too. So it's kind of interesting. You get a little flavor of everything, but certainly to say, hey, big time ore haul conveyor belt, basically from the mine to the dock.
The other book here is by Patrick Dorn, is called Michigan and Ontario Iron Ore Railroads.
Yeah.
So and the LS&I is front and center on this one, and it's really, really, if you get a chance, if you're at a train show and you're interested, try to find these two books for sure. And that's, I don't know, I could go on for hours about this.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's just this one of those railroads that is too cool to stop talking about, but we need to. So, but that is your short line of the show, the Lake Superior and Ishpeming Railroad. Next month, or next episode show, we are going to Minnesota, and we will be doing, in all likelihood, the Minnesota Commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Another railroad that I have some personal roots in, to a
Connections
degree.
to, right?
I have connections in that railroad, yes.
Well, that was certainly fun. Short line this week. You got to thank the rail fans.
Yep.
The folks, Liam, and did Nathan contribute some stuff?
Oh yeah,
too?
Liam and Nathan and Owen and Brock and all these guys. They're just
So
that whole group, all under the age of 25.
So
all under the age of 25.
Thank you again
like us,
for
just a little bit younger than us.
Yeah, just a hair,
little bit,
just a hair. But anyhow, very good. A very good contribution. Thank you again, guys. All right, so a lot of people here talking, gabbing about what Paul is going to be talking about tonight. So, Paul, we'll go ahead and kick it over to you. We'll give Mike a break. What do you got on the ticket for us tonight?
So before that, I sent you that photo I thought we'd put up and show some Aussie prototype railroading.
Yeah.
And my good friend Brendan, who here in the chat, took this photo. He's a engineer who basically does a lot of heavy coal up in Hunter Valley of New South Wales.
Yeah.
So this is a new locomotive, and I'm sure Aussie Engineer will put some comments about it in the chat. It's a new locomotive.
Look at this.
Beautiful photo, that.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
And these are General Electric locomotives. Brendan took these for me for my birthday. He got off the locomotive and took some photos, and I thought I would share it with you. It's just a beautiful shot. So both those locomotives, you can see the back of it. It has our local Indigenous
Yeah,
painting on it on both of those.
that's really cool.
Beautiful units.
So what are they
Brendan, what type of
hauling?
locomotives are they? That they'd be similar to 4400 C44s, I think they are.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Big
That's
cabs,
awesome.
big wide safety cabs on them
Yeah,
as well. So I thought we'd share
unbelievable.
that with you. I'm sure that there's Brendan put something in the chat now. C44 ACIs, they are.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so thanks for that, Brendan.
Thank you so much.
So okay, so is that's not graffiti on the back, right? That's
No,
painted
no.
like that?
No, it's an Indigenous painting representing our Indigenous Aboriginals.
So are each engine painted differently?
Yeah, those two are. Yep. But
That's
I don't think all of
beautiful.
them have them.
Wow.
That is
That's a
really
wrap.
beautiful.
Those are cool locomotives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so is the reason that is the reason that intake filter pointing up, is that to try to keep as little dust from getting in as possible, or is there a reason for that? Because that's usually GE's. Yeah, like right in that area is. I mean, I see a lot of overseas units have those like that.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so there's only 2 of those locos painted like that, but these are the latest. I think there's about 40 or 60 locos purchased.
Wow.
And they're our latest. Okay, so I guess we'll bring the presentation up now, Andy.
That would be just fine.
So this is a presentation, basically takes you right through. I'll go to the next slide. And what I'm going to talk about is I'll talk about a little bit more background about my hobby, about my layouts, and then the move to my new location. We'll talk about design requirements, construction and track laying, scenery, layout extension and lift bridge, operating and Proto throttle, the operating rules, my Riverbelt logo, lessons learned about what I've done building this layout, my latest warehouse project that you can see there in the background, which has only been finished on Sunday, and what future projects I have in the pipeline. So taking you back, as I said, 75 to 79, I had a HO 8x4 in my parents' garage. Then 81, 83, State Rail, which is the local authority at that time, had an exhibition layout that they used to take to what we call the Royal Easter Show. And I worked on that, rewired it, put in relay-based signaling. Then my N-scale layout, which you can see here. So I had like a basement in my old previous home, which would have been perfect had I stayed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that was an N-scale with a double dog bone. So it was all about continuous running. I hadn't really learned about operations in modeling. So as much as it was fun, I soon got a little bit bored about watching trains just going round and round. Although some people enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then we'll move on to my current layout. There's some photos from my N-scale build, and basically Missouri Pacific, MKT, same companies really that I always like. So that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about N-scale, but as I grew older, I realised that my sight, isn't getting better.
Right.
So hence new location. So we decided to move house in 2012. My last house was basically a number of levels, and we decided I needed a double garage for a start for my cars, and I wanted a change. So I sold my whole N-scale collection, which funded the transition to HO. So the reasons why I transitioned to HO was an opportunity to start fresh with a new roster. DCC and sound was more available in HO, and it was suited for realistic switching operations, which had really taken my interest. And it was an opportunity to have the layout designed for prototypical operations. And the main requirement for me was an end-to-end switching layout. So that's a garage, that's the wall. So what I did was I had some design requirements that I actually engaged with a designer in the US. So what I wanted was many of the industries in both designs had a variety of deliveries at different times, food distribution, which had daily shipment, a printer that may receive paper and ink, and machine parts monthly and ship out daily every 3 days or weekly, depending on their clients. I plan for trains for approximately 8 cars, but I do run up to about 12 to 16, which is always challenging. Although some local assignments will have fewer. And the brewery, of course, receives grain. It has silos, but also has box cars, tank cars. So, breweries are popular on switching layouts because they have so much opportunity for operations.
Right.
Both have brewery industrial beltline yard at the bottom left. I'll talk about the plan, and the brewery on the left wall. It has a lift-out bridge, which didn't get built originally. I built the layout in 2 stages, and each industry has multiple spotting positions, therefore increasing operational complexity. So these are the original, I hope you can see them okay. These are the original early plans.
Oh, cool.
Both drafted. We had the left-hand side is very similar on both designs. The right-hand side across the lift bridge was slightly different, and we just to and fro. So the layout designer went by the name of MC Fujiwara from USA, but I never really got to know his name. And we built quite a document between us on requirements, and I think it's good to have your requirements. What do you want to see in your layout? How do you want to operate? And I guess it enabled us to come to our 2 final versions, which we have here.
Oh, yeah.
You can see on the left, both have classification yard down the bottom, and then the main brewery is on the left-hand side. Then we go up around the corner. There's a food production plant, and then across the lift bridge. We adopted the one on the right, long term, but as you can see, lots of switching, lots of industries, enough to keep 1 or 3 people busy on that. I'm just looking at some of the chats. Yes, I sold my N-scale collection. It all went. So this is a stage 1. I built the layout in 2 stages, and the reason I did that was I wanted to have something finished to operate before I built the full layout. And I think there's always a risk if you build a large layout that you get halfway through the track laying and wiring and you get a bit sick of it. For me, by building the stage 1 first enabled me to do track laying, wiring, and then operate. And I operated significantly, and then I did the scenery and structures. And I started operating when I just had half the track laid. I think that helps in track reliability. It's very important. So the final decision, as I said, was to build the left-hand side, and I put an additional runaround, a crossover up the top, so that I could run locomotives back down the layout without having the extra section. Final version designed for 4 interchanges, which I'll talk about. And I talk about where the Missouri Pacific, Norfolk Western, and Missouri, Kansas, Texas interchange in Kansas. So that's a brief part about it.
Okay.
It's all built. Yep. Ask away.
Yeah, I was gonna.
What happened?
Yeah, I'm here. Andy, we've lost your voice.
Oh boy. No, we've got some thunderstorms going through here.
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly. Hey, do you got
He's back.
thunderstorm? Hey, do you got a thunderstorm going through Ripon right now?
No, I
Oh.
got my greasy meat hands hit the back button on my mouse, and I decided that I just leave the screen.
You
No,
had enough.
I was done. I really
That's what Andy
apologize.
does, Paul. He just leaves, you know.
And I apologize for the poor production quality, but so just a quick question. So we talk about the Mopac, the Norfolk Western, and the MKT. So what made you choose? And if you're going to talk about it a little bit later in the Prezzo, that's fine. You can move on. But what made you choose those three railroads?
I guess I always liked Missouri Pacific in learning about US operations.
Love the Mopac.
Yeah, I think everybody has a soft spot for them. I love the color scheme. I like the wide range of locomotives that they operated.
Yes.
As well. Norfolk Western was a little bit later. I just started to like some. They were the early, in a way, a large railroad as well. And I just liked their locomotives as well. And MKT, I love the scheme. So I had to have all three. So the way I devised a plan was that all three interchange on the Riverbelt line, and some pickup cars and drop cars off. And it just gives me a lot of operating opportunities that I can do on the layout.
Yeah, very cool. And then I think let's see here. Was one question maybe from the group. I guess I must have lost it, but
I think
go ahead.
William asked a question about what happened to MC Fujiwara. So he did a lot of design work for people, and I met him through trainboard.com. So when we talk about social media, I was admin. I still am on Trainboard. I've been there for 20 years. Not that I'm that active there anymore. And I met him there, as well as Jim Wiggins on Trainboard. Jim's a moderator there as well. So I met MC there, and I engaged him to design the layout for me.
Oh, wow.
And but he just dropped out. So I'll talk about the construction phase now.
Okay.
What I wanted was something solid. Now it's in the garage, so I designed it so that I have two cars. I have my family car, and I have a '69 Volkswagen Beetle. That's my little runaround that I restored. So the layout had to fit in with the two cars. And what I found was I was putting shelving on the right-hand wall, commercial type of shelving. I thought, you know what, this is solid stuff. It would make great for the shelf layout. So basically, I used steel shelving, and then put a L-girder benchwork basically on top of that. And then I cut the front sections of the shelf away, and then I mounted the backboard, and you can see that there's a valance on the top. And I use LED strip lighting for the lighting of it. So solid, never had an issue with it. I also insulated the garage to reduce the temperature variations. And here in Sydney, we can go from, in Fahrenheit, say 30 up to 115, 120 Fahrenheit in summer, around about 38 to 45 degrees Celsius in summer.
That is
so, and even though I've insulated it probably gets too hot to operate. But I don't solder my joints. I know some people solder joints on their rails. I don't, because I need the expansion. Like the prototype, you need to allow for expansion and contraction with such large temperature variations. And I've never had a buckled rail or anything like that. So I think that's worked fairly well.
That's a really cool concept for doing bench work. I mean, that's really interesting. It serves so many more functions than just being a bench work.
Well, I got the under bench storage for all my modeling as well, and a little bit more than that too, which I'll show you.
Okay.
So Pico code 80, I went code 83. Minimum size is number 6 switches. So there's no underlay, and the reason I didn't put cork was because it's an industrial layout, there's basically no formation in industrial type of spurs. It's basically on the ground. It's not a class 1 railroad. So I just laid the track straight on the MDF, and then I applied scenic. All track glued, no pins.
Okay.
And I used Caboose Industry manual throw over levers.
Oh,
But what I did was I did a lot of hours of running testing with my worst rolling stock and locomotives. You know, for me, it's about reliability. You want points to operate. You don't want locos stopping over points. And it was before that we had these capacitors in locomotives, and I don't have any of those anyway, because my view is that will hide any issues in your track work. If you get your track work to operate reliable, then you don't need to worry about that type of stuff.
So before we carry on, I have a couple of questions, and for those, and I just want to take a quick pause break here. For those in the chat, if you guys have questions, just get them out there, and I'll do my best to get them up on the board. But so let's talk timeline here. So how long did it take for you to essentially put the bench work into play, and then start laying track and getting it to a point where you were doing your testing operations and that type of thing? Was it like a couple of weeks, a month, a year? How long would you estimate that took you to get from A to
I
B?
probably had track laid within 4 or 5 months of
4 or
moving
5
in the
months.
house.
Okay.
So within 3 weeks of moving in the house, I started the bench work.
that's pretty quick. That's actually pretty fast, you know.
Yeah, well, I had the design prior. I had it already.
There you go.
But if you know Don Iris, Don built a triple level or double level layout in about 12 months. So I'm a little bit slower than that. But just a question from Ralph: how do I do the wiring underneath? What I usually do is I'll pull out the top section of stuff on the storage to do it. But basically, I wired the layout pretty much before I had any under storage. However, saying that, I'm about to run a lighting bus under the layout in the next few weeks to do future lighting of the layout.
Cool.
Whereabouts in Sydney am I? I'm out near Camden in the southwest of Sydney. Just answering that question there. So just if you look at the ballasting, the ballast is actual ballast dust, crushed ballast. So we had a supplier here in Sydney that goes to the quarries where ballast is produced locally, and then crushes it further and sells it. So I used basically N scale ballast because on an industrial line, it's not large ballast like you would on a main line, and a lot of it becomes dirt. So I used a really fine ballast, and as you can see there's a lot of greenery because certainly in yards and even on main line, you've got greenery through. You've got grass growing, grain growing on the track, and they don't run the poison trains like they used to. A little these days they try not to. So you always get that type of thing. You can see.
Question from Peter Tillman: what's the name of the ballast vendor?
So it used to be Chuck's Ballast Supply. It's now, I think it's Matt's Ballast Supply in New South Wales and supplies around Australia. But it's very similar to your supplier in the States who uses ballast as well.
Like Arizona Rock and Mineral?
Yeah, Arizona.
Yeah.
Is similar. It's so realistic. It looks really great.
Yeah,
roadways, I did using pretty much what I call gyprock filler, which is what you call drywall filler.
Yep.
And I just use that and add plenty of water. It does tend to crack a little bit, but I still think it looks quite effective on that. Specific year, it varies, but basically I model the 80s, 90s. You won't see much modern locomotives. So my theory is that it's a industrial railroad that basically purchases second-hand locomotives from first-class operators. It's all 4-axle, locomotives. I do have 1.6 that, not that I operate with it, but basically all 4-axle locomotives. But, like everything else, it's my layout. I run, if I like it, I'll run it in terms of that.
So Ray's got a question there too.
Yeah. Thanks, Ray. Welcome. We waited for you to turn up. So, I'm not being paid by Around the Layout at the moment. I'm on my own time.
Poor
So,
guy's on his own dime.
Yeah,
Ray.
Right.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to have a conversation with Ray about that.
Yeah. Well,
I use Walter's kits, and I think my other thing I'd say is that as you do more modelling, your modelling skills change, and you tend to want to go back and redo things or have a go at doing things differently. And yes, Don, Alcos and Alcos. I do have some EMDs, but I do like my Alcos. So in 2018, so that's about 5 years after I'd built the first section, I decided to actually do the extension. And the extension was a part using the lift bridge, which you can see, and I will talk about that a bit more. The lift bridge was a bit of an engineering challenge, certainly around adjustments when you have temperature variations. And I do have adjustments that I can do, but all in all, it operates not too bad. I lifted it, it's right across the doorway into the garage. So you can see there that the bridge, which I think I have another photo on it, shows a bit more. So the layout extension added another yard, another classification yard, and 2 interchanges. So the layout has 4 interchanges. It has a Norfolk Western, an MKT, and I have a Mopac South and a Mopac North interchange, which gives me lots of opportunities for cars to come on the layout and go off. And I'll talk about that in operations.
Sure.
So here's the lift bridge. So it basically swings up and latches up in the vertical position, and then is brought down for operations. It's about 4 feet long, and it does have a crossover on it. One thing I did learn was that originally just had normal track butting up to the ends, but the plastic ties don't hold the rail well enough.
Right.
And I used a product made in Australia by a friend of mine, which is basically PC sleepers. So which are about 4 connected together. And what I did was I replaced the original plastic sleepers with the soldered ties. Made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I've had no problem since in alignment of each track.
So this
this
would be illustrated by the picture on the lower right, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah. So this is where you replace the plastic ties that come with the flex track with the PC board ties. So what did you use to glue down your PC board ties?
I used the product here is called Aerodite. It's 2-part epoxy.
Oh yeah, that'd be real strong.
Yeah, that's not coming apart.
No.
And then do you, so one of the things, I'm a bit of a lift bridge aficionado. What was what was one of the things that you did to get so when you lower it down, how did you get it to essentially, do you do anything for alignment laterally?
Yeah, so I've got a piece of timber that sits underneath. I mustn't have a photo here that sits underneath, and there's a guide for the bridge.
Oh,
so
perfect.
The bridge sits in between that timber and pretty much aligned, but I allow a couple of thou of movement so I can line up the rails for temperature variation.
So do you do a little manual adjustment and do a little testing before you kick off operations?
Not really. Drop it down. I just check that it's aligned, and off I go.
Away you go. Nice.
Very rarely do I have any problems now with it. But what I will say there, lift bridges and duck unders and that should only be a last option. If you can get away without it, I'd recommend it. But like myself, I didn't have that. I had no choice. The damn door's right in the middle of the wall, so I had to do something around that. And in terms of power, the main bus runs along the floor and back up under the layout.
Oh, there you
And
go.
I do feed the lift bridge separately from the main section of the layout. Okay. Any more questions? You're looking good. Okay.
Come on. there is one.
Okay. I'm
one
split rock.
funny.
Yes, I say
Yeah,
garage,
yeah.
and we don't say aluminium. We say aluminium.
Aluminium.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't say solder. We say solder.
Oh, you pronounce the L.
Yeah, we pronounce the L.
Yeah, and that's true. Paul is right. It is better than doing the dirty crawl.
Yeah, for sure. So layout overview. This is giving you an overview of. So that the first photo is looking at the back, looking back down along the left-hand wall, right-hand wall, looking this side. And it's changed a little bit. Even in that photo, that the new warehouse isn't there. It's the old photo. And then the photo on the right is coming around the corner towards the lift bridge. It's the only curve, and it's quite a tight curve. What I'm planning is Iowa Engineering about to release their wheel squeal detectors, and
From
I'll
Iowa
install
Scaled Engineering. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So it'll detect the presence of a train going round the curve, and it'll play the wheel squeal sound.
That's gonna be awesome.
I need to get like 3 or 4 of those on my layout.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to release because I'd like to give them a go.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is looking across the lift bridge into the what I call the harbour port area. It has a small port, not as good as Boomers, I must say, and but it just symbolises the grain terminal there that does export grain off the layout. So looking from the top, this is looking to the right down through the classification yard, the engine yard, and there's a spur that takes you through to the printing factory.
Nice.
I think all up I have about 26 spots on the layout for spotting cars.
Wow.
That's a brewery. Now that building there is the Heritage Furniture building from Walters, and I actually bought 2 and combined them into one large building.
Holy
that
smokes.
Starts quite wide and then is a lot narrower at the other end. So it gives that, it's not flat perspective against the wall.
Yeah, right.
It's at an angle, and it's very effective. And I see that building on quite a lot of layouts, and I've contemplating whether or not I actually build a new structure there to replace it. But I'll think about that. That's the engine terminal on the left, which I expanded during COVID. And I also built that metal yard. And then the one on the right is the extension. And you can just see the harbour. I probably built it too low. The water line's too low because it's at the back of the layout. It's difficult to see.
Yeah.
But you learn from your own mistakes. And yeah, Don, your sticker's there, absolutely. One of the first to be put on the layout. That's an animal layout photos, just some of my favourite scenes.
Oh, sure.
It's
like the
I did my own signage.
You did your own signage?
Yeah, I just got the signs off Google, just Googled some signs and then printed them out and made boards and weathered them.
Yeah, there you go.
There's so much you can do in this hobby yourself,
Yeah, yes, that's very true.
So these are more detailed scenes that I've
done.
You'll see the one on the top left is a bike store, and there's also some scary clowns that I recently installed, which are from Bernard and Mini Prints.
Prints, yeah.
My view is you can't have enough detail, and what I always said was I did the first layer of scenery on the layout, and then I've picked sections and put more details in there. I also have a military remembrance park that I have there with a garden, and I recently installed the statue of the soldier, and I have an American flag in the back because Australia has a close relationship with USA and our armed forces. We fight together. We fought together in many wars.
Yes.
US has military presence in Australia, and so that was a bit. My father was in the British forces in World War II, so I just put that there as a bit of a remembrance. But what I do need to get is that flag needs to be replaced with one that looks like it's in a gale force wind.
Yeah.
And
It's pretty
Walters
stiff.
do have a flag that's and I know Boomer made one, although I don't have the skills of Boomer to do that and the patience, but I will replace that flag.
Hey,
with one
Paul,
that's-
I got a question for you on these
Yep.
scenes like this. Okay, I just got done. Split Rocks just did a podcast here not too long ago on details in a scene that are basically just for you.
Yeah.
Do you have that in some of these photos? Like, is there some things that they're just kind of there for you that the typical guy that's going to come over isn't going to see or understand?
I was listening to the podcast yesterday.
That you listen to the same one, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the Crossing Gate. It's a great
Crossing Gate's
podcast.
Awesome.
And the ones for me, so you can see in that one in the top right, that Volkswagen being scrapped.
Yeah.
I'm a Volkswagen person, so I needed to have, and I'll show you another scene in a minute. So that's in there to replicate many of a Volkswagen that was just sent to the scrappers, and you'd cry now. You cry when you see that. They're worth so much money now, and just a great car. So that's one that definitely is. But I'll take you to the next screen. And the cemetery has interesting because when I was a signal maintainer, I worked in on a freight line that was a perfect Y junction, which the Aussies will know is Shallora Junction. And I was a maintainer there for 2 years, and right along the main line there's a cemetery. And I'd be working along there, and it's the largest cemetery in the Southern Hemisphere. So you'd always see funerals happening and stuff like that. So that was for me, just my little scene. And then, of course, I've got forensics there that have pulled up a couple of coffins on an investigation. So that's a little mini
pretty
scene.
Interesting. Never would have thought of that.
And they're from mini prints as well.
Yeah.
And then top right is my Volkswagen scene. So I used to take my Beetle out and we'd go to Volkswagens. We'd meet up in a car park, and so I've set that up there as well.
Is that Herbie?
Yeah, Herbie's there. You'll see the creamy color one in the bottom right-hand corner. That's the same color as mine. So they're my little signature scenes. And then just some of the detail. There's a little swing park there, couple of boats in the port. I think mini scenes are really good. It just individualizes the layout a little bit more. I've still got more to do. As I said, you never finish a layout. There's always more detail to do. So now we'll get into the operating. So it's DCC operations with originally NCE power cab, and I had one NCE wireless and 2 NCE walk around throttles. But with the acquisition of the Proto throttle, they've all pretty much been thrown out. I usually I have the NCE wireless throttle as my backup, but for visitors basically, or future my grandkids. But my Proto throttle is what I use all the time. I'll talk about that in a minute. All switches are manually operated, and the Caboose Hobbies thrower is marked green and red. So when the switch is in the normal position, you'll have green on the top and red when the switch is reversed. Nice. And that way, it's a quick indication when you're operating to see the lay of the switch. Cars are switched to several industries, both on and off the layout. and I utilize drawers under layout to store cars, which I'll show in the next slide.
Mm.
Roster is basically loosely around the 80s and 90s and consists of EMD and Alco 4-axle units. All rolling stock is weathered prior to entering service, and all uncoupling is carried out with manually wooden skewers. Artie, I operate usually. I'm a lone wolf, and but anyone's welcome to come and operate with me. And my good friend Don Iris, who regularly operates his layout with 4 or 5 operators, has been on my back to start operating with others and not be a lone wolf. And I'm keen for people to come up and operate as well. So you can see there's in the bottom right hand, there's a holder there, which I hold my skewers along the layout for operations as well. Yep, the footprint, Dave, is roughly 18 feet by 18 feet, or 6 meters by 6 meters in an L shape, which is quite a good size switching layout. Okay, I'll move on to the next. We've got about 10 slides. So for those who've got
no rush,
those who've got a Proto throttle certainly understand the advantage of it. It adds another dimension to operations. It does require locomotive CV and function changes, and it's I must admit it's a bit of a steep learning curve at first, but it's worth it. Provides realistic acceleration and braking, wireless operations. It has 20 locomotive configurations. I use JMRI Dakota Pro to do my locomotives, but if you don't need to change function settings, there's only really 2 or 3 CVs you need to change on a locomotive to get yourself up and running. CV3, CV4 are really the only CVs. It's a worthwhile investment. Cost is approximately 2 locomotives, DCC and sound. So it is an investment. I understand a lot of modelers who say, it's too expensive. But if you're really keen on operations, forgo buying those next 2 locomotives and get yourself a Proto throttle. Mike, you use one.
Yes, I do.
As a locomotive engineer, you see the realism of it as well.
And I've got a real quick funny story about that. When I first got mine, I started getting it up and running and everything. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get things to go the direction I wanted them to go. And then I realized that I was doing everything backwards. So forward was back and back was forward for me. And I'm like, oh, man. And I'm sitting here going, well, I better hope I don't go to work and do that.
That's true. So a couple of questions, Tim. That the green is, the plugs you put in the walls for screwing into the walls. We call them raw plugs. I put them on the end of the skewer just to give you a bit more cross-sectional area for your fingers when you're switching the coupler. Artie, the price landed is about $900 Australian. That's a lot of money in Australian dollars, because it's about 450 US, and you have to buy the card, the receiver card for it as well. But let me tell you, it's a worthwhile investment. Yeah, for the dowels. Yeah, it's basically a dowel.
Paul, would that be, or Andy, would those plugs that he's talking, those wall plugs, would those be like what we call anchors?
I think he said something like a dowel. So
if you're going to screw into brickwork, you need to put in like a plastic. It's like a plastic
like
star.
anchor.
Yeah, it's like
anchor.
We call them anchors here. Yeah. I
use them. I just put them on the end of the skewer just to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
The other thing I do have is I have for the area I'm switching, I have a track diagram on the fascia.
That's good too, to have signage on your layout.
Yeah. As well. I also have DCC Concepts measures current on the DCC, so I can see the load, which is very interesting because if anyone has the early RS11s from Proto, they have a defective motor, and in time they end up drawing more current to a point where they cause short circuit. And you have to replace the motors, but there is a CV fix for that as well, which I found out after I burned out motors on 3 locomotives.
Oh boy.
But Rapido were good. They sent me out the 3 motors as part of the warranty. So it's not a car scale. Yeah, that is what I use to measure current on the layout. Proto throttle we've spoken about. You can see there a better picture of the diagram, which I just use MS Paint to draw up. It's just handy for people who come to operate to understand what the layout's about. So I have operating rules, and this is credit to Tom Kamoski, another presenter on this show. I came across Tom on YouTube, and then I went to his website, and I found that he had operating rules. And just to show the type of guy Tom is, I emailed him and asked him if I could use his rules so I could modify for my layout. And Tom provided me the Word document, enabled me to modify the rules to fit my layout. And we talk about method of operation, what the block limits are, the speeds of the line, train crew instructions are there.
Wow.
Headlights, ditch lights, when to operate the bell. So these are all things that you can add to add more layers onto your layout. The other thing I will say about Proto Throttle, it adds about 50% more time in.
Really?
Yeah, it really adds more time because you're not just stopping the locomotive. You've got to brake it. So add brakes, so it takes longer for the locomotive to slow down, to accelerate. Horn signals, all that type of stuff adds more prototypical operations into your own operations. Now, not everyone has to do it, but for me, I find it quite interesting. Questions like there's rules like grade crossings. Grade crossings may not be blocked for any reason. No cars shall be left within 50 feet from the grade crossing. So that means that you need to switch your cars clear of the crossing when you're loading or unloading.
Do you have a lot of momentum built into your locomotives then also, or no?
Yep, I have quite a bit. Although sometimes I do take that off. It depends on how I feel, but there is momentum, and I think it just adds more realism, and it hones your skills on operating it and controlling the locomotive. You're not just winding down the stop; you're actually applying brakes and the like. Other rules I talk about are things like the route. Before entering a route, visually confirm that all switches are aligned for a required route. Mm-hmm. And after clearing a route, ensure all switches are returned to normal. And that's really important in an operating railroad. We've had major collisions both here and USA where the switch has been left in the wrong position. Yep. So it's really about learning how you operate in the prototype. A safety stop shall be performed 1 car length prior to coupling to any standing car. And there's reasons for that. People will tell you that the railroad's built on blood, sweat, and tears, and that's absolutely true. The serious side of railroading is people have been killed during operating, and it's very important. And I think that for me, I like to build that safety component into when I operate because it's very part of operations. Next stage.
It's a good way for people to come over and learn how real railroading is done too, by having some of those same rules installed on your layout, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It helps you learn about the whole bit about operating trains, operating cars and switching and all that type. I have derailers, which I'll show you on the next page. Blue flags, which I haven't implemented, but if you're working on a car or on a locomotive, that locomotive should be blue flagged to ensure that no one operates it while someone's working on it. Hazard material placard. I mean, you can really work, you can really add, we talk about putting detail into the layout. You spend a lot of time detailing the layout. Why not put that detail into the way you operate as well? It adds for more realism. And then, so instructions relating to the switch list. I have 3 switch lists, one for Norfolk and Western, MKT, and Missouri Pacific, which I'll show you shortly.
I want to answer the question that just popped up there, Paul, if I could.
From Tim Moran.
Yeah, Tim Moran. Tim, I believe so. I know on the WC we started using where we would say in between to let know, but that was in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was doing that. So 3-step protection or set, we use set and centered on the Canadian National. Those kind of things for his time frame, unless it was specifically specified by the railroad that was what was going to happen. I don't remember a lot of that happening at all. So I'd say yes, that would be too new for his time period.
Yeah.
Do you have that down? Do you have that kind of stuff down in Australia also there, Paul? Like, where if a conductor or an engineer needs to go in between to make air hoses or do something in between where the engineer has to verify with the conductor that he is, We
also don't allow the riding of moving trains. The conductor used to stand on the steps and of the car. We don't allow that anymore. They have to walk with the train, not ride or be up in the engine in the cab pretty much these days. But I'm sure my Aussie engineers here will tell me if that's right or wrong.
That's just on the engine, not on a shove.
Yeah.
On a shove move. Gotcha.
On a shove move, yeah, I'm pretty sure we've. Brendan said brakes applied, reverser centered, and generator filled off when doing that. So derailers, Scott Thornton, who I think you've had on as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I purchased, and I think you have too, the working derailers, which are just fantastic. So in most of my spurs, I have derails, which are prototypical to ensure that nothing rolls out of the spur onto the main line. And let me tell you, I've done that myself. So a couple of times I've switched and I said, what was that car derail? Bloody derailer.
Yeah, the stinking derailer is still on. I was trying to get Scott to I was trying to talk him into it in St. Louis this last year. I was trying to talk him into making some of the older style derailleur rail.
Yep.
His work amazing. I mean, they work.
They work really well.
Really, really good. He did a great job with them. It'd be nice if we could talk him into getting some of the earlier versions of these out, but might not be possible because it just with the way they operate and stuff,
But once again, another detail that one looks prototypical and works prototypical.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes you, so you can see I've put derailer warning boards. And it's a reminder, hey, I've got to open up the derailleur before I switch that spur and make sure, because the operating wheel calls for it. So trains are not permitted to pass sign until guaranteed a derail device has been operated. The normal position of derails is in the derailing position shall be returned to normal when not in use. So when you're operating, you need to open the derailleur and close it when you're finished. Now,
what about if there's no cars on the track? Do you leave the derail on or do you leave it off? Now, on the Canadian National, the derail has to, if a track is equipped with a derail, it always has to be on, whether there's something on there or not.
Yeah, I do that. I keep it on.
You do?
All the time.
See, that's a good little a little whammy for a guy that isn't really paying too close of attention.
Yeah,
and, there's nothing on this track. I'll just shove in there.
And you will notice that my signs are square with the round D. I do that so that you can see it better. Although both Don and Ray always say to me, "No, I should have cut them round. They should be round." But maybe Don can send me some out. So, but they're effective. But I did use rail. I did use offcuts of rail for the posts, which is what we do. which is quite common as well, of using rail as a post for signs.
Another subtle detail that is just kind of there, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So Switchlist. So I'm a Mac user, and I use the program Switchlist, which is specifically made.
They need to get this for the PC. Is
I
what
know.
they need to.
If anyone here is a software designer, the owner of Switchlist is quite happy to give the data to someone who wants to make it Windows based.
I want to use this so bad.
I know. It's great. It generates lists for each train. You can have as many trains. Mine has 4 interchanges, 2 yards, 26 locations for spotting cars. There's multiple car spots within each industry. Cars are switched to several industries, both on and off the layout, and they interchange industry to industry. In most cases, the Norfolk Southern switches general box cars and reefers. Missouri Pacific has the corn tankers and beer tankers contract, and MKT has grain cars and other miscellaneous cars. And the switch list, once you set it up, it's basically when you finish a train, you say completed, and then you hit another icon and it generates your next switch list based on what you've set for each industry and when cars are due to be picked up and dropped. And you can set a car to be picked up anywhere between 1 and 3 days.
Wow.
So it's great. You just and it prints it out, and I print mine in PDF form and I send it to my iPad. So I use my switch list on my iPad rather than printing out paper.
If it prints out in PDF form, then could you pick that up and just pick it up on your cell phone then?
Yep. So you can do that as well. And the Switchlist program has a server on it, so you can actually connect over the Wi-Fi via an IP address and actually have it on your phone or on your iPad live.
So Chris Bell has a question. He says, how many cars do you typically have on the layout?
Usually about 80 is about.
Wow. Okay.
Well, that's a nice number. That's a good number.
Good number. Yeah.
Yeah. All depends on how many cars are being switched at the time, but about 80 is what is on the switch list with my 3 trains. And I'll just go to the next slide.
Yeah.
It'll show that a bit.
Is cool. I mean,
a bit more. So I had a service one for locomotives, but I basically have 3 switch lists. One is for the Norfolk Western, one MKT, and one Mopac. And then there's all the industry. So there's different tabs in the program. And then the far right photo image is the actual switch list that you can see. It basically tells you out of the classification yard to pick those cars and where they're going to. And it tells you the load if they're empty or loaded as well. It's a great program. It's, JMRI has one Windows based, but it's a little bit more complex. And I know that William uses that as well. There's also a new one called STS that's available as well, Windows based. But
I haven't quite. I have it on my computer, and I haven't quite been able to grasp how to set things up real well on it.
And I do have another group.
Difficult.
I do have another group, Andy, which is Switchlist operating which group. Actually, I'll tell you what it is exactly. I'm admin for that too. It's not used that often, but it's called Switchlist Operating Group. Okay. And those who use Switchlist, Dan Dosa, who is from Crossing Gate, uses it, is active on there as well. And we provide assistance to people who want to use Switchlist. And I'm in contact with the developer. Now, the only downside is he's a programmer who's very busy, and we haven't had an update for quite some time, although he is working on a new update on this program. I love it. It's worth considering if you're Mac. Yeah, sorry, Ray. I'll invite you to it.
Is there a website that a person could go to do some research on Switchlist?
Yeah, there's the actual Switchlist program, but I'm not sure of this. If you can download from the Mac store, the program is free,
Okay.
and it has there is a program. But if you go to Facebook Switchlist operating group, we have files on there that you can download as well.
Okay.
And a number of Martin Nash, who's another Aussie, he's pretty prolific with it and always offers assistance as well. It has reports. It also has reports on where your cars are, how much loading your industry is. So I highly recommend it.
Okay. It's just in another life I did or still do software engineering. So yeah, I would be curious to take a look at the code and see
Yeah,
if it's something that we can convert
that
over
would be
to.
brilliant. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, because it's
It's
really something I want to play with a lot. And I mean,
it's
this would be
simple.
perfect for a small layout.
It's simple enough that once you work out how to set it up, it's quite easy. And it's never fixed because you might change a load to be delivered more than once a week. It could be daily, it can be weekly or monthly,
Yeah.
and how many cars a day, week, or month. So it's getting that balance so that how many cars are on the spurs and how many are off. If you've got too many, then your spur's not long enough, and you actually put in the size of your spurs. So this takes me to the next point
Oh
is
yeah, look at that.
what I have is where every interchange or yard is, I have a set of drawers. So cars, when my classification yard has too many cars, they go in the classification drawer. The top drawer you can see in the top left is the Norfolk Western interchange. So cars come on and off the interchange into the drawer. And the top right, there's 3 drawers. One's for the MKT interchange, one's for the Mopac, and the bottom one, which you can't see, is for the Southwest yard. So I have around about 300 cars all up, and 80 on the layout. The others are in that storage, and then Switchlist brings them on and off from the interchange.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
So there's a couple of questions coming in from the chat. Chris Bell says, with the 3 different railroads, do you change the look of the ballast or the track too? To
Not so
indicate.
much. Not so much on the interchange. They're basically all the same. It's sort of like the interchanges on the Riverbelt line, so they're dropped off.
And then
So
go ahead.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, I just read the Tim asked a question. I think it's great. It can be adopted for modular layouts as well. If you've got cars that need to go from a place to a place, Switchlist is perfect for that. Not so much for, I guess, continuous running. It's purely around switching.
Yeah.
But it's certainly adaptable.
Yeah, and then I have a question. Just looking at your drawers here, so do you line them with anything at all, like foam?
They're just lined with a plastic type of mat.
Yeah, sure.
In there, never had any problem. The only issue I will say is that, some of the manufacturers' cars that are super detailed aren't suited for coming on and off the layout. Tangent home shops. I've bought a few home shops, and Chris Palmieri have had a discussion around that. They're beautiful cars, and but for an operator that comes on and off, I love the AccuRail stuff. That just doesn't have that fine piping and that. So you'll find fine piping on my layout that's come off or in the drawers. Like the prototypical, by the way. You'll have a few things along the line. I just leave them there. But yeah, that's the only downside coming on and off the layout. But this has such an advantage because it allows anyone with any size layout, you can have as many cars come on and off. And Switchlist basically allows that variability depends on what cars are available. It will bring them on and off the interchange. So if I have I might have 4 box cars that go to, they come out of the brewery, and I just have them going to whatever interchange I want them to go to. when I drop them off at the interchange at the end of that operating session, I take them off the interchange. They go in the drawer. The next session, there'll be cars coming from that interchange back in onto the layout. So I just take them off the drawer, set them up for the next operating session. So as if overnight, the Norfolk or Western have dropped those cars off on the interchange, ready for switching to an industry.
Interesting.
Nice. Very nice.
So it allows for a more throughput of cars on the layout. Yeah, it always gives me an excuse to purchase more, I guess.
Right.
If I see a car I like, I'll purchase it and I'll put it in.
Ralph Renzetti, don't use bubble wrap.
And Don, yeah, the longest cars are 50-foot cars on the layout, mainly because of that curve, and I didn't want real long cars, so I limit myself to 50-footers. I have some 40s, but none with running boards on the roof. I do have a couple. I mean, you can still do that, but yeah, 50-foot is the longest I have.
Yeah.
On that.
Good.
And those drawers, which I bought secondhand and they were IKEA drawers, and the three drawers original, and I cut the others up and modified them so they'd fit under the shelf. On that.
It's pretty slick.
So the Riverbelt logo. So
yes,
my logo, which has appeared on this show, was originally it was an idea of mine to have the Norfolk Western, Missouri Pacific, MKT logos into one. And my good friend and our friend William Sampson, I went to William being a graphic designer, and William came up with the original concept of merging the three. So William gets the credit for that, and Ray Arnott, not just a voice, is also pretty handy with graphics. Actually put it together and came up with that logo, which I have now.
Oh, wow.
So credit goes to both William and Ray for that logo, and I must admit I love it. And
it's pretty sharp
on my cup, which you can see there.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I had Highball Graphics custom make a number of size decals for me, and I've now got 2 locomotives, So I have a Riverbelt. So the Riverbelt line has its own locomotives and a number of cars that is purchased. So I've modified 2 locomotives and about 10 cars with the Riverbelt logo. And I've also sent my decals to a number of people who wanted to put the Riverbelt line on their layout as well. So it's good. It's a bit of fun. It just adds my own, I guess, person to the layout. And of course the stickers, which Don probably started me off on that, and he probably has more than anyone, although I have quite a few as well. So that orange, Artie, is the original Atlas C420 V&N locomotive, which I just change the decals on.
Wow,
on that.
That's fun. That's I love the home road.
Yeah, I think it just adds a little bit of individualism to the layout as well.
It certainly does.
And the Riverbelt is known now. A lot of people recognise it. Yep, absolutely. And I know that Mike's got it and had it on his drink container.
I did. I needed a different one because when I washed it, it came apart.
I'll have to get you another one.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
It is such a cool logo.
Yeah.
So lessons learned. Select an appropriate room. Garage isn't ideal. If I had my time again and I purchased another house, I probably would have looked for another room, larger living area, and had the layout inside. It's okay, but in extreme temperatures you can't use it. And then I've got the cars in there, so I've got I can operate with one person, no problem with the cars in there. But ideally I'd love a train room.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have it? I hate to interrupt you, but do you happen to have any problems with moisture, like when it gets to be like rainy, like raining and everything like that?
Yeah, not really. Pretty good. Fairly stable. I insulated not just the roof of the garage, but the actual garage door is a tilted door, and you can get inside. I put insulation panels inside the door.
Oh, nice,
smart.
And that's improved as well, the temperature. But what I did find is I use a MDF, like particle board, on the layout, and I didn't seal it. And what happened was, as I added scenery and used water and glue, I got some bowing on the MDF.
Ooh.
And so if your couplers aren't right, you could have uncoupling. I've had to do a couple of minor repairs. Not too bad, but yeah, there's something I should have done. And I learned from Boomer, certainly he uses Verathane on all his timber structures and that to seal.
Right.
And I did that with my structure, which I'll show you shortly. Avoid a lift bridge at any cost unless it's totally unavoidable. Swing bridges, all those type of things are there for a purpose. I get it, but as I said, if you can avoid that, I highly recommend it. Less is more. So ensure their layout has negative space, and and it takes me to the next point. Learn from others. I highly recommend the Lance Mindham books and Thomas Klomoski's book. They are great resources for planning a layout and getting it right. They're two people who do it. They're professionals, and I've learned a lot from their books as well. For those getting into it, consider building a small shelf layout first before building the dream layout. Building dioramas, learning on scenery, laying track, all that is a great learning experience. We've seen many of people who start building their dream layout and haven't done it before and basically never finish because, they haven't learnt the skills. So I guess that's a lessons learnt. And those two locos are the latest Bowser release RS3s, beautiful units, really nice units. And I weathered those with pan pastels. And, for those who are scared of doing weathering, grab a $5 box car and just learn weather it. Even the simplest weathering is just using masking a locomotive and spraying it with dull coat. Yep. Just do that.
Pull the sheen off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do the trucks. Have a go doing the trucks. I mean, we all started basically where, I don't see myself up to Ralph's standard. I mean, the work that Ralph does is just amazing. But it gives you something to seeing what Ralph does gives you a step to get there. And we can learn off each other. And shows like this and around the layout really help in learning how to make improvements. The other part is the layout is never finished. Keep there's Scott. How are you, Scott? You can never have too much detail. I think those who purely want to operate may not agree on that, but for me, I think it's great to be able to stand back and see the details. And people come and visit the layout and enjoy that. My family aren't railroaders really; they're not in the modelling, but they enjoy coming out. And just a quick story: my mother and father used to encourage me in my modelling. My mother at 92 would come and give me money to buy trains. I said, Mum, I don't need the money. No, take it. And Dad's passed now, but Mum's now 98 next week.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Not that she comes out now, she's in care, but she still asks, she used to regularly ask about my trains. And, she was the one who encouraged me when I was a school kid and take me to hobby shops and buy me things. So she was, I probably dedicate this to my parents as well.
That's cool.
Very good.
So my recent project, which a few of you have seen, was basically from Boomer. And people don't realize, if you go back to episode 4 when we had the social media, it was one of my recommendations about Boomer's diorama.
Yeah, right.
that we spoke about, and I've encouraged a lot of people across to Boomer. I think he's a great modeler, but he's a professional. So he does professional work and brilliant. But he did inspire me to build this layout, this warehouse, and I watched his episodes probably 10 times. And the first thing that I thought was really important learning was make a cardboard mock-up first.
There you go.
And I learned so much in just doing that in terms of positioning the doors. And I changed it about 4 times on the cardboard mock-up. Had I started building the styrene one, it would have been a disaster. So, and I used my group and I put the mock-ups up and I asked for feedback, and I got some guys who actually drew mock-ups and drew warehouses for me and showed me some of the benefits, and it was just great. And then I built the plywood structure and put it there on the layout, and I switched with it just to give me ideas. And I was worried I wouldn't be able to get Verifane in Australia, but Verifane is only a name. And when I went to my local hardware, they were able to give me a urethane, same type of product, which I used on there because I was worried about gluing the styrene and it coming off. And Boomer had spoken about that. And I tell you what, when you use the Verifane, it glues really well. So I use styrene sheet. I used 2 millimeter, which is about, I think it's 80 thou. It's a 9080 styrene sheet. And then I guess added detail parts. And then the biggest trick was painting. And I used Boomer's way of using a brown, black undercoat where all the joints were to highlight that. And then I used a grey to spray that, and then really 20% paint, white, using isopropyl to paint the structure. And I'm really pleased with the outcome. And it's no Boomers. I know where I've made all the mistakes, but I think it's a great. I'm really happy with it. And then the lighting, I bought on eBay these LED street signs. I bought street lights, and I bought 10 for $10 delivered, and I just cut them up and I used the heads for the lighting. And no one else has seen those photos online. Only a couple of Don and Ray have seen it. I wanted to hold it for here, and
that's cool.
That's the first structure to have
really
lighting
awesome
on the layout, and really pleased with it.
I'm interested in those lights, Paul. Could you send the link over when you get a chance?
Absolutely.
That would be. I've been looking for something exactly like that.
Yep, and I just cut the post down, put them in, and they look really good, really good. But I do give credit to Boomer for his tutorials. Yeah. And I'm used to a single action airbrush, and I purchased a new Iwata one this year. And I have to tell you, and I'm sure a few of you have done this. I was saying before, I'm spraying this dual action and getting not too bad, and then it clogged up on me, so I cleaned it, and I forgot to put the what's the middle shaft back in, the needle.
The needle.
Yeah, I forgot to put the needle in, and I'm loading the paint, and then I spray. I think, geez, it's coming up heavy, and then I realised I hadn't put the needle back in. So I was. If you ever watch that show, Seconds from Disaster, I was seconds from disaster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of times I had to message Don because not using a top loader, I was spilling paint, and I had to ask Don, can I put the lid on top? Because I wasn't sure if you could if the lid would stop the air sucking through, but you can use a lid, and it's just that's a beauty now. If you need to ask someone a question, you've got people on hand that you can just quickly ask a question.
Yeah.
And that's a beauty of it. And even Scott, Scott Thornton. I've messaged a few times in the past about Proto Throttle, for advice. It's just fantastic that, socially we have all these groups that we can get advice from. So I think I'm on my last slide now. My future projects. So I actually got manual operation level crossings with time cutout feature. So currently they just work off a switch and they basically run all the time. What I'm actually going to do is Charlie Bishop, who's a huge YouTube channel in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
He found this device, $5, right, on eBay, that allows for timers. So basically you use a momentary switch, you set the timer, and you can set it from 0 to so many minutes, and then it'll just shut off. So I'm actually going to run my level crossings like a conductor will do on a manual crossing out here, where you hit a button and the crossing operates while you're switching and then shuts off. So for $5, I get a momentary switch that will operate this timer and then switch off the level crossing after maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. So I'm going to do that rather than have track detection. So that's one project. The other one is installation of lighting on all my structures and roadways.
Yes.
So that one, the warehouse is only temporary wide. I'm going to run a lighting bus all the way through the layout, and I'll start progressively adding lighting to my structures and some road lights and stuff like that. And I've converted some of my locos to scale sound speakers, which for your older locomotives I highly recommend. The sound's amazing. But what I did find is some of the later Athens ones have dual speakers already, and you're not going to get an improvement on the sound. But on my older locos, I've found that the scale speakers are fantastic.
Yeah,
really
scale sound systems are really, really good.
Yeah, have been great. I think there's my advertisement for Around the Layout podcast. So Ray,
Ray,
you can't deduct my salary because I've actually promoted I'm actually reckoning that's a bonus, So and Scott, we honest lights are similar for crossings as well. And but I'll send you a link, Andy. You can put in the show notes for. I'll send you one for the lights, and I'll send you one for the timing device. $5 US. It's just incredible, So the other part is, Around the Layout. I recommend everyone to subscribe to that, but also, of course, Second Section and the Crossing Gate, which are 3 podcasts, and all the YouTube channels. We're all on them. Williams is the best production for a YouTube channel.
Yeah, super good.
The Sioux Road is just fantastic as well. So that's pretty much the end of the. Rowan, I'll tell you what the. I'll find that and I'll put that in the show notes. It's actually from Cabot in Australia. Has a product as well. I may have it here.
Any type of polyacrylic is a so Verathane being a brand name, right? You could use Mimwax or any other type of polyacrylic, just essentially or a sanding sealer would do the same thing.
Exactly right. It's a clear urethane basically. As well, and it was. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get it here in Australia, and they just searched for it, what the name of it. Said, "Oh no, you can use Cabot's clear sealer. It is, and it's a urethane basically clear sealer on that."
Yeah, I mean, this is fantastic presentation, Paul.
Absolutely.
This
phenomenal.
Was super good. I really love how you basically took us from from
Whole journey.
yeah, from soup to nuts here, right? The whole process, and shared with how you went through and kind of engineered this up with, the detailed track plan, and then turning that track plan into reality. And it is fantastic. And Soothe the Milwaukee Road captures, I think, the
Absolutely.
comment here. Paul is a top-notch ambassador for the hobby. I would agree 1000% with that.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Not just with what he's doing with Around the Layout and the Facebook group with the HO Shelf modelers, but just promoting everybody and everything, and approaching it from a positive attitude and manner. It's really, really pushing our hobby forward. So thank
I
you
think
very much.
just my last comment. I think what was really important during COVID was I say to people that my hobby was one of the best investments I've done.
Yeah.
We all have, there was a lot of mental anguish at that time, stresses, and even in normal life, I'm in a quite stressful role, but, I just walk in the garage and I've got my hobby, I've got my layout, and it gives me hours of my own time to enjoy the hobby, the social aspects, the socializing we have online with so many people is just fantastic. And it's to me, it's really important. And we all learn from each other, and as you get to retirement age, I think it's important that you have a hobby, because it's just so many benefits to it, and you learn so much.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. So I want to kick it. I thank you again, Paul. I want to kick it over to the section crew here in the chat. We're still carrying about 70 folks in the chat here as we approach hour number 3. I think from a time constraint standpoint, we're going to probably pass on what's on our workbench this week. So we'll have to bring everyone back in.
We'll have to do that instead of a short line of the show next show.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll alternate. That's for sure. But I did want to give the chat a last opportunity here to ask some questions for Paul about
some hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, let's get some hard-hitting questions out there about shelf layouts, especially, and then just operations. That's another thing. Switchlist, any of those other things. And then Mike and I will go into our closing comments for this evening. So, Mike, awkwardly, as I do at the end of every show. Well, how was that? This was fun.
I tell you what, when we have guys like Paul on, and Tom Klomoski and Mike Rose and Boomer, and the list goes on, whatever, I end up taking notes, and I'm on like page 2 or 3 of my notes, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go in the other room, and I'm going to turn around, and I'm like, okay, this whole thing needs to come down and start all over. It's just, I mean, I'm not going to, but I mean, it's you always find new inspirations and new thoughts on how, even just like the most minute little things, it's just, and like just looking at the photos and how you did certain things, Paul, it's just, it's very, very cool to see, how things came together. And this is all in just along the walls of a garage,
Right.
And the other thing is he's in Australia, he's modeling the United States, and he's nailed it.
Yeah, that was the other thing that we didn't really touch on at all was how just well done it was, that how he captured the United States and the how the right down to the operation and the fine details with the derails and stuff like that. Aside from the signs, Ray, right? But
But
I was impressive. It was really impressive.
yeah, but if you take a stop and think about it, it's the Riverbelt line. It's
Yeah.
they are their signs. It's not
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, I mean, any short line in the United States could have those same signs, right? Or something like it. I mean, like the derail signs, not
Yeah.
everything is a yellow square with a big black D on it. There's all sorts of different signs for those. So I tell you what, this is right up there with one of the cooler layouts we've
This is
we've
I
seen
really
on
like
the show.
I really like this, and I've actually
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
and it's actually inspired me to finish this peninsula, because I was the winds of change are blowing this way, but I think now with this, seeing the shelf layout, getting some operation in, doing some running, playing with it a little bit, I think it would be really cool to just have this little, what is it, 10-foot by 2-foot set, or not even 2 foot, like 14 inches, set up and running and finished, and be nice to finish that off. But we are getting a couple of questions here.
Yep.
From the chat. So Tim Moran comes back and
Yep.
says, how tall is your bench work?
So
your
you can see by the photo either the bench work's very tall or I'm very short. I'm very short. It's 50 inches from to the track height, which is quite a good
That's
height.
not bad.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't do it any higher. I wouldn't be able to reach. So basically 50 inches high, and in most cases it's about 24 inches wide. And one other thing I will say is when I did do that design, I actually emailed it to Lance Mindham,
Really?
and Lance gave me some feedback on it.
Wow.
And which I really appreciate. And he said, don't make it too wide, don't fill it with tracks, but when he had a look at it, he said, yeah, it's quite good. So that was a real benefit that I had. So Lance is someone, and I'm really looking forward to listening to next week on around the layout, because he's probably the shelf layout guru.
Yes.
And
yes.
Gary, you've got Gary Rooming in 2 weeks,
Yes.
a mate of mine, another Aussie. He's a good. His layout very much, you'll see the influence of Lance Mindham on Gary as well.
Yeah, that's going to be cool, because I think he's modeling, if I'm not mistaken, the Florida East Coast.
Yeah. Florida, but he has about 4 different shelf layouts around the place.
That's awesome
as well.
Yeah. So another question came in from the Aussie engineer. It says, Paul, what would be your top 2 or 3 space saving tips?
Well, I guess building the shelving underneath was for me really beneficial, because I don't have any other room, I can store all my modeling stuff underneath. I think having an interchange with drawers gives you options. So even if you've got one interchange, you have 1 or 2 drawers, means that then you've got that ability for cars and locomotives to come on and off the layout. So it increases your bandwidth of what modeling you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a third one is do plan. Yeah, you've got to compress areas. I'd love to have a larger yard, but I couldn't. So having just a yard that holds, maybe 20 cars, 30 cars, then having having a drawer underneath enables me to have a smaller yard and have more spurs and track work along the way.
Yeah. Chris Bell's got another nice question here. Can you tell me how you came up with the idea of multiple railroads in a small space?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a good question. It was more about how can I introduce the railroads that I want to model in a small space. So it was more about the three that I model. How do I do that? And it was by having interchanges gave me that reason to have those three railroads in the one. So MKT will come off the interchange and it will switch the whole layout because it, by a switch list, it does mainly grain cars. So it picks up from the brewery, it picks up from the silo. And then Mopac will do tank cars. So then the way I do it is that I have a number of railroads with specific contracts to switch on my layout, on the layout, which is similar in the prototype anyway. There's different.
That's not overly far-fetched for that to happen.
No.
Exactly.
We have a thing in the States called reciprocal switching. So that's where you have multiple railroads doing kind of the same deal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Peter's got a question. Will I be at Rosehill Racecourse Train Show? So that's the National Model Railroad Association convention here in Sydney, October. And yes, I'm actually presenting on the Proto Throttle. So I'm doing
fantastic.
a clinic on
nice.
on Proto Throttle. So if you're still there, Scott, I'm still carrying the badge for you, and for Iowa Scaled Engineering, and I'll be there.
Are we going, Andy?
You know what? I could probably weasel in a quote unquote work trip over there.
Wow.
And then we can make that happen.
Anyone who's visiting, certainly welcome to look me up, grab me on Facebook, and there's my email. Happy, contact me.
Yeah, very good. and Ray's Paul, you're flying him in. That's taken care of.
Well, on the salary that he pays me, absolutely. I mean, first class all the way, Ray.
He's getting
Spirit.
He's getting getting Emirates Diamond class is what it is.
He getting Emirates Diamond class? I was thinking like Spirit.
The only problem is Ray is so famous now with around the podcast. He's got an entourage as well.
Oh man.
You know,
boy.
I'm just waiting for the big gold chain around his neck and a big fur coat walking around the place.
The collar popped up and
absolutely.
I like that. That's good. That's real good.
It's stuffed in a DHL box. Yeah,
there you
That's
go.
more expensive. Let me tell you.
Probably. Very good. Okay, so again, I'll throw up last round of questions here for Paul, and then I do have just a quick programming note for the 60 of you that are here that plan on attending in 2 weeks. We're going to have a schedule change. We're going to be doing the show, I believe, April 15th, Saturday night here in the US, Sunday morning in Australia. And it'll be a good time. Bring a cold one or two and sit back and enjoy the show. Gary Rooming will be on, and we're kind of in the shelf layout theme now. So buckle up. This one's going to be a good show as well. And then we'll do what's on our workbench.
Can I just say, thank you to all those who've come tonight to watch my presentation and all the feedback. It's really appreciated, and a lot of you are in the group as well. And it's not me who makes the group; it's the participants. It's everyone who posts, who makes comments and likes. That's the success of a group. It's not the admin. I just keep it flowing, and it's these shows, over the last 3 or 4 years that have been a real savior for a lot of us with COVID. And now we've got our own. I don't even watch TV anymore. There's so many great YouTube shows,
right?
And I look forward to them. And of course, podcasts, which around the layout podcast is and the Crossing Gator 2 that I listen to all the time.
Yeah,
I have to listen to around the layout podcast. Being an employee,
whether you like it or not, you're going to listen to it.
I don't know. I thought that I think were we talking about it in the early the pre-show tonight, but that last episode of Around the Layout, I really liked that. I thought I thought it was really cool to hear Ray's story. So
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
yeah,
It was good.
very good. Well, I think what we'll do tonight is we'll end it on that as we bring her back to the barn, and we'll tie down tonight. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, and then we'll have Gary, and then we're scheduled out until June now, so it's gonna be
Wow.
a cool ride in the summer. I want to thank the section crew. Fantastic chat tonight. Really good engagement. Excellent discussion. And again, we can't do this show without you guys. So again, I appreciate that. On behalf of Mike, Paul, and myself, thank you, section crew, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks all.